accidentally picked up the female lead, not expecting the other party to plan a complete takeover of both sisters. Not only did she make her brother her own, but she was also determined to pair her brother with her. Eve transmigrated into a beast man, becoming the male lead's older sister in a novel. She was often bullied because she was a hybrid of human and wolf. But what was even worse was that in the book, the Dragon Clan and the Wolf Clan had been enemies for generations. The female lead turned dark, becoming a black dragon, who wiped out the entire Northern Wolf Clan for revenge and also kidnapped her beautiful younger brother to be her pet. As for her and the entire Wolf Clan, they all died at the female lead's feet. To change her fate of certain death, she had no choice but to hide deep in the forest, raising her younger brother alone by selling medicinal herbs. Originally, she wanted to avoid the encounter between the male and female leads. But that day, she accidentally came across a little girl in a red hood who had fainted. Eve had intended to leave the girl behind because she didn't want to get involved in trouble. But she remembered her mother's dying words, telling her to be a kind person, so she saved the little girl. But when the other person opened her eyes, Eve was extremely shocked. They were ruby red eyes that only the Dragon Clan could possess. Eve understood that the other person was the female lead. She immediately hid her younger brother behind her back. Why did they meet before the original story's timeline? Weren't they supposed to meet for the first time as adults? At this moment, Zion peeked out from behind his sister. He wanted to see the little girl, but Eve wouldn't let him, telling him that the girl was very dangerous and forbidding him from getting close to her. Zion could only reluctantly turn and walk away. The original female lead spoke up to thank Eve for saving her. She just smiled awkwardly, said it was nothing, and then thought about her plan. And Eve wanted to save money to buy a fake identity and move to the human world with her brother. That way, they could escape the ending in the original story. She worried that the girl's appearance would ruin her well-laid plans. Eve wanted to send the other person away after she recovered, but unexpectedly, she heard the girl say she had amnesia. Eve couldn't believe it and asked several times, but she only received the same answer. The little girl remembered nothing. Eve was desperate. Did she now have to tell her that her name was Jessie, that she was from the Dragon Clan in the South, and had an incredibly talented older brother? Surely, she couldn't say that. Seeing her racking her brain, Rachel quickly begged her to let her stay until she recovered her memory. Seeing that pitiful, pleading expression, Eve's heart softened for a moment and she let the girl stay. The two siblings continued to hide their werewolf identities, and Eve also became the temporary guardian of the little girl in the red hood. Meanwhile, the female lead's brother was frantically searching the entire Southern Dragon Clan, but there was no trace of his sister. In order to get treatment for Rachel, she sold precious herbs at a low price to get a chance to see a doctor. After the examination, the doctor said that the girl had post-traumatic stress disorder and might regain her memory in a few days. But the girl's body temperature was higher than that of the Wolf Clan. The doctor saw through it at a glance. I heard a child went missing in the South, the leader's sister. The doctor reminded her, "You know the relationship between the South and the North, don't you?" Eve was frightened for a moment. It seemed that no matter what, she had to return the girl. If this continued, she would be killed by the dragons sooner or later. After finishing her business, Eve wanted to take the girl home. They passed by a stall. Rachel wanted to take a look, so she had to take her there. Eve explained to the girl that it was a dream catcher, which could help ward off nightmares. Speaking of which, Eve couldn't help but remember the original story. It turned out that after the death of her parents and brother, Rachel was tormented by nightmares all year round. Every time she closed her eyes, the nightmares would return. It wasn't until she met Zion that she gradually escaped the nightmares. Eve resolved to treat the girl well. She bought Rachel a dream catcher, hoping that from now on, the girl would have beautiful dreams. Because dragons have very high body temperatures, whenever she cooked, she would prepare a cold dish for the girl, just by Eve holding her hand. The fever symptoms that even her brother and the doctors were helpless against could be alleviated. Early the next morning, Eve got dressed and ready to go to the market. After saying goodbye to Rachel and leaving, Rachel changed from her usual innocent and obedient appearance to a cold and emotionless face. It turned out she had already recovered her memory. The reason she continued to stay was that she wanted to bring Eve home to be her sister-in-law. But the little girl didn't know that her brother and future sister-in-law had already had their first thrilling encounter. It was rumored that the Wolf Clan had stolen the heart of the first Dragon Clan leader, causing the dragon's descendants to be unable to control their flames. Generations of their power had been affected by manic fever fits. Rachel ran away from home and went to the north to find the stolen dragon's heart. After days of searching, Rachel's brother finally received a report that someone had seen a child who looked like his sister. He went with a masked man to the southern square. This insolent wolf dares to touch my sister's clothes. Are you tired of living? On her way home from selling herbs, Eve vaguely realized she was being followed. The pursuit led deep into the forest, showing that the other party was not simple. She froze an apple as a weapon to warn the other party that she had discovered them. Rachel, at home, also sensed her brother's power, so she eagerly set out to save her. If she didn't hurry, her future sister-in-law would die. The person following her still hadn't appeared. Eve guessed it was Rachel's brother. Could that doctor have sold information to the Dragon Clan so quickly? She gritted her teeth and cursed silently. Suddenly, she heard a rustling sound and threw the frozen apple. Eve clearly felt that she had hit her target, but she didn't hear anyone faint. Was her opponent's head made of stone? Just as she was about to leave, countless red eyes appeared in the forest behind her. Although Eve thought only 1 or 2 people were following her, she didn't expect there to be so many. At this moment, flames began to surround her, leaving no place to escape. "Where did you hide, my sister?" The one who arrived was the leader of the Dragon Clan, the enemy of the Wolf Clan for generations. Eve felt like she was about to die. It seemed the other party saw her as a kidnapper. She had to explain clearly to the man that she had saved Rachel. But because she was too anxious, Eve stammered for a long time without being able to explain clearly. The man stubbornly interrupted her. "I don't have time to listen to your excuses." Eve was so angry, she gritted her teeth. She didn't want to die unjustly. She quickly grabbed the other's wrist, demanding to be allowed to finish speaking. But the moment they touched, the powerful dragon flame was extinguished, leaving only billowing white smoke. And the manic fever symptom that had plagued the clan for generations also disappeared. He only felt a cool sensation throughout his body. Just as he was about to ask the woman what was happening, Eve collapsed from exhaustion. Before fainting, she was still muttering curses at him, calling him a bastard. At this moment, a worried Rachel ran over. But after running away from home, the little girl no longer wanted to acknowledge her brother. She even called her brother a bad guy for bullying her sister. When Eve woke up, she found herself back home. The 2 adorable children rushed into their worried sister's arms. After remembering the scene before she fainted, Eve immediately checked her head and bottom. She breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, her werewolf features had not been exposed. After the misunderstanding was cleared up, the man sincerely apologized. When he first introduced himself, Eve immediately went into fangirl mode. She felt he was incredibly handsome and charming. However, she couldn't just let go of what just happened. She had almost lost her life. So afterwards, she had to demand double compensation from him. The brother wanted to take his sister home, but the sister pretended to have amnesia. The little girl really liked Eve, so she tried to find a way to kidnap her to be her brother's wife. So Rachel just clung to her, pretending to be scared, saying she didn't know that brother. But the clueless brother was unaware, saying that he was her brother. He even took his sister's hand and placed their dragon flames together, merging them to prove that he and his sister were connected. But Rachel turned her head away and refused to admit it. The brother had no choice but to let go. However, Eve knew the man was the girl's brother, but to save her own life, she didn't dare to speak the truth. She just wanted to quickly get away from the female lead who would kill her in the future. But Rachel stuck to her like glue, so he could only smile and pick the girl up. "I'll be in trouble if you're like this. Please go home with your brother." Rachel shook her head, not wanting to. "If I have to go, I have to go with you." But Eve didn't agree, saying that the girl should go home now because she knew Rachel didn't belong here. Seeing Eve refuse like that, Rachel immediately launched a tearful attack, crying a river. Looking at his sobbing sister's back, Nelia could only ask Eve to let his sister continue to live here. He would visit often. Eve was about to refuse, but the man promised to pay a high salary with a sincere attitude and his handsome looks, making her agree despite the risk of becoming a roasted wolf. Not only because she could gaze at the handsome man every day, but also because of her plan to live in the human world. Buying a fake identity also required a lot of money. After seeing Nelia off, Rachel's plan had succeeded. The little girl lay next to her sister, a victorious smile on her face. In order to matchmake her brother and her sister as soon as possible, Rachel asked Eve what she thought of her brother. Eve shyly admitted that he was her type of man. Hearing her words, Rachel's eyes lit up. The little girl quickly made a plan for the two to meet often. So the little girl suggested she would meet her brother once every 3 weeks to give the two a chance to build their relationship. The 5-year-old, under a nickname, urged her 30-year-old brother to get married, and even decided to personally win over her future sister-in-law by transforming into an innocent Lolita, hiding to help her brother. Nelia dressed smartly to visit his sister, but their relationship was much worse than that of strangers. Eve wanted to help them soothe their relationship so that the two fire dragon siblings could become closer. Because her body was very cool, Eve held Rachel's hand tightly and said, "I'll hold one of your hands, and you hold your brother's hand with the other, so you can slowly get used to your brother's temperature." But the little girl pretended to be clueless, saying she didn't like this game. She then deliberately intertwined their hands. "This is the game I like best." The coolness where their palms touched made Nelia so excited he was speechless. But he thought he didn't like it. "I'm sorry, I held on too tight. It's okay. This is the first time I've felt so cool." His cheeks flushed shyly again. As a descendant of the fire dragons, Nelia had been troubled by manic fever fits for a long time. After coming into contact with this girl, this was the first time in his life he had experienced such a cool sensation. The vague atmosphere gradually became ambiguous, but a clueless third wheel jumped onto the bed and separated the two of them. "What you two playing? I want to play too." "You idiot, what are you jumping up here for?" Rachel angrily scolded the boy. Meanwhile, Eve was still reminiscing about the warmth in her palm. "I didn't expect his hand to be so warm." Eve suddenly thought of something. The Dragon Clan and the Wolf Clan have been enemies for generations. She and her brother were hiding the secret of their werewolf identity. Therefore, Zion shouldn't have too much contact with that man. What if his tail and ears were accidentally revealed? She was about to hint to her brother when she saw the boy treating the man like a heater, rubbing here and there. His wolf tail was comfortably exposed, setting off death knells in her heart. Eve quickly pulled down her skirt, carefully covering it while peeking at the two siblings. Luckily, she wasn't discovered. Eve took the opportunity to grab Nelia's hand, wanted to pull her brother's hand away, and spouting nonsense to attract Nelia's attention. Rachel reminded the little boy that his hair looked like puppy ears, which made Zion realize he was about to be exposed and quickly retracted his tail. Eve breathed a sigh of relief. Because of the intense power in his body, very few children wanted to be close to him. But Zion said that he was like a warm son and praised him for being very handsome, just his sister's type, which made Nelia's face turn as red as a tomato. Eve, on the side, also blushed with embarrassment, telling the boy not to talk nonsense. But Zion continued to reveal, "My sister said she likes handsome guys, especially when they're crying." It turned out Rachel had bribed Zion long ago. If he made his sister fall for her brother, she would give him a warm flame. As soon as Zion finished speaking, she was so embarrassed she wanted to hide. She quickly picked up her brother. When they were little, every time Zion cried, she would tease her brother like that. She never expected karma to hit her back so hard. This left Nelia deep in thought. She likes handsome men who are crying. Faced with this misunderstanding, she didn't know how to explain it at all. Eve cried a river of tears. On the way back, he denied his feelings for Eve. The violent power he couldn't control had already caused him to permanently lose his loved ones. He couldn't hurt the people around him anymore, so he had planned to be single for life. But Rachel snuck out to stop him, scolding her brother. "You blind fool, a stupid reptile that only knows how to breathe fire. A man should be proactive, but my brother is too cowardly." In the end, she could only sigh. As for Nelia, he was just worried that she would be in danger if she ran out alone. She likes men with broad shoulders, a narrow waist, who are handsome, rich, and have a castle. Nelia was confused. "Why are you telling me this? Are you stupid? You meet all of her conditions." He finally understood his sister's meaning. Even a 5-year-old could see that he liked Eve. Nelia covered his face in embarrassment, but his sister reassured him. "I'll help you." The next day, Eve went out to meet a friend. But when she returned home, the two children had mysteriously disappeared. After searching the nearby forest and market, she couldn't find them anywhere. Eve was extremely worried. The Dragon Clan leader had asked her to take care of his sister, but she had carelessly lost her. Even her own brother was gone. It was due to her carelessness. While thinking this, Eve suddenly bumped into a man's chest. Looking up, she realized it was him. She burst into helpless tears. It turned out that this morning, Rachel had woken up and seen Eve preparing to go out. She learned that she had an appointment with a friend and was carrying a basket full of herbs. Rachel opened a basket full of gold coins. With so much money, she still has to sell herbs to earn more? Could it be that the money her brother gave wasn't enough to satisfy her? Suddenly, she gave a wicked smile. Is my future sister-in-law very ambitious? But she likes that. However, the next second, Rachel realized something was wrong. She's going out to sell herbs. So why does she look so excited? Suddenly, she had a bad feeling. The friend she mentioned could be her boyfriend. She needs a lot of money. Could it be that she wants to move out and live with her boyfriend? Rachel had actually forgotten this possibility. Finding a wife for her brother was really tiring. The little girl quickly got ready, preparing to follow and check. But just then, Zion also ran over and demanded to come along. She had no choice but to let him come, but warned Zion not to run around. But they didn't know that Eve wasn't going to meet a boyfriend, but a regular customer who bought her herbs. Because the man often traveled for business, Eve often got information from him. After saving enough money, she planned to sneak into the human world and start a better life with her brother. The man gave her some bad news. Because the Wolf Clan had recently changed its leader, most of the smugglers had been caught. The authorities had tightened control on smuggling, so she could only wait until the controls were loosened before thinking of another way. To thank him, Eve gave him a bag of herbs for free. The man also insisted she accept some contraband as a gift in return. As soon as she got home, Eve found the door wasn't closed. Rachel and her brother were missing. Eve tearfully told Nelia, thinking he would blame her, but he gently comforted her. The most important thing now is to find them. Then the two of them split up to search. They had no idea that the two children were not only lost, but had also been arguing for a long time. They couldn't find their sister. The butcher next door was talking animatedly about the slaughtering process, which scared Zion into crying and wanting to go home. But they hadn't found her sister, so how could Rachel give up? She impatiently cut him off. Don't. Zion sniffled and retorted. She said she likes men who cry. Although her taste is a bit strange, she and I are different. This statement struck a sensitive nerve in Zion. He wouldn't allow anyone to speak ill of his sister. She's not a strange person. The two argued endlessly, neither giving in. Zion angrily turned and ran away. He didn't want to stay with Rachel. He wanted to find his sister by himself, but running forward, he reached the crowded central square. Rachel stopped chasing Zion. Her distinctive Dragon Clan appearance, with black hair and red eyes, would be seen through by the Wolf Clan in an instant. The little girl had no choice but to use the Dragon Clan's fire magic to block people. But this scene was witnessed by a despicable middle-aged uncle. Rachel shrank back in fear, using the brim of her hat to cover her head. However, in the end, the only ones who could activate fire magic were members of the Dragon Clan, the enemy of the Wolf Clan. This is just a dragon. The man easily snatched her up. He planned to hand her over to the Wolf Clan leader or sell her privately. He would surely make a fortune. Seeing Rachel in danger, the recent grudge was instantly forgotten. Even though he was scared, Zion mustered his courage and lunged forward, hitting the big man. "You bad guy, let her go." But he was pushed to the ground by the man. Because he was so agitated, Zion's ears were revealed and the man laughed at him. Ha ha ha, a dragon and a half-wolf. What a funny combination. She wanted to protect poor Zion, but Rachel couldn't even protect herself. Her throat was squeezed so tightly she was about to suffocate. The demoness of the Dragon Clan, who single-handedly wiped out hundreds of thousands of wolves just to avenge her brother, but spared the crying wolf youth out of lust, taking him back to dote on every night, training him to become an obedient puppy begging for love. But when the plot changed, the person she liked most in her life was not the boy. To save his sister, the always gentle and kind brother transformed into a demon from hell, almost burning the trafficker who bullied his sister to ashes. In his first murderous rage, Nelia scared Zion. His cries and fearful expression pulled him back to reality. Nelia suppressed the urge in his DNA, sparing the man to calm the two children. But unexpectedly, the man retaliated. It was clear he had malicious intent towards the little dragon first, but he twisted the truth. How dare you attack a werewolf while in the Wolf Clan's territory? Because of you, a war will break out. He threatened to inform the Wolf Clan leader about this, but unexpectedly, a frozen apple knocked him unconscious from behind. She felt extremely angry, grabbing him by the collar and shouting, "How dare you do that to my two siblings? Scum like you should go to hell." She raised the frozen apple, about to strike him ruthlessly, but Nelia stopped her, snatching the weapon from her hand and telling her not to be impulsive. After all, killing a wolf is against the law. Her sister's cool action shocked her brother and also gained her a fan. Rachel called out to Zion, "I don't want her to be my sister-in-law anymore. Instead, can I be your bride?" Finally out of danger, Zion ran over crying, asking his sister for a hug. But Eve's expression darkened as she scolded him for running around. "Since Mom passed away, you're my only family. If anything happened to you, how could I live?" Zion felt heartbroken for his sister and wiped her tears. Zion quickly apologized to her. Rachel also reconciled with her brother. But before they left, this pair of siblings separated from Eve and returned to the alley. Just because her sister-in-law had avenged her and Zion doesn't mean she would let anyone who made her sister-in-law sad off the hook. Pig-like screams echoed through the alley. Returning to the wooden house in the forest, Eve constantly lulled the two children to sleep. She blamed herself for not taking good care of the children, putting them in danger. But Nelia felt she had done a very good job. He suddenly knelt on one knee. "You always bear everything. If I can, I want to be by your side." Before he could finish, Eve made an excuse to get up and leave. The Dragon Clan leader with zero experience in love. For the first time, he gathered all his courage to confess. Who knew he would be rejected so cruelly? But he didn't know that from the moment he knelt, her heart was already moved. But various shackles made her deceive herself. It must be because too many things have happened recently that my heart is beating so fast. She hid outside the door to calm down. But a few days later, she caught a cold because of this. As a member of the wolf tribe, living in the extremely cold north, catching a cold and having a fever was a disgrace for Eve. Her foolish younger brother, thinking his sister was about to die, was extremely worried. But this was a good opportunity for Nelia to show his worth. He not only cared for Eve, but also prepared the medicine himself. After she took the medicine, he placed his hand on her forehead. Feeling the warmth of his palm, Eve peacefully fell asleep. But when she woke up, her hands had turned into wolf paws with pink pads. Her tail also appeared. Why did she turn into a wolf? Fortunately, someone had gone out to get water and hadn't returned yet. Eve thought this must be a dream. She curled up into a ball, trying to go back to sleep, waiting after counting to 10. She was sure she would turn back to normal, but it was all a deception. Eve was trying to figure out the cause. Suspecting that Nelia had used the wrong herb, she climbed onto the table with her short legs. Seeing that only half of the green herb was left, Eve suddenly felt hopeless. She had used this before. A wolf friend had given it to her last time, because at that time, she was looking for the 2 children. She didn't have time to deal with it. She never expected to accidentally eat it. Since her mother passed away, Eve had lived in human form. No one taught her how to transform. If Rachel and her brother saw her like this, they would surely crush her to dust. Eve intended to open the door and escape, but the lock was too high. It was out of her reach, so she couldn't open it. Just then, the door suddenly opened. She thought this was the end for her, but unexpectedly, the little girl pretended not to know. But her usually foolish younger brother seemed to have noticed something. At this moment, her ears and tail looked very familiar, like my sister's. Before he could finish, the boy's mouth was covered by Rachel. It's just a puppy from nearby. I've seen it before. The gullible little brother was easy to fool. He wanted to share this with his sister, but looking at her bed, he saw no one. The boy always felt something was wrong. To divert the little brother's attention, the white wolf could only put her 4 paws up in the air, acting soft and cute, letting her brother pet her. What an adorable dog. He hugged her, playing with her pink pads. Zion was having a wonderful time, but his sister was feeling utterly desperate, bitterly wanting to survive. She even gave up her pride. The brother was coming back. Rachel's sudden reminder scared the white wolf, and Rachel thought of a way to save her sister-in-law. Because dragons and wolves are enemies, her brother would lose his mind upon seeing any wolf. A massacre would begin. Suddenly, a tall, dark figure appeared, accompanied by the sound of the door opening. The final boss finally appeared. Why is he here? His blazing red eyes stared at Eve. Rachel hurriedly hugged her tightly. Don't touch it. I want to keep this puppy. The little girl carefully hinted, if you want us to live together, you should look carefully. This is not an ordinary puppy. Staring into the white wolf's blue eyes, Nelia had an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He glanced at the messy, unmade bed, then immediately covered his mouth in surprise. Seeing his seemingly unhappy expression, it was clear Nelia knew the truth. Eve worried. The man's wrath would involve the 2 children. She hurriedly escaped from Zion's arms. Risking being killed, she approached the man's feet. She looked at him with sparkling eyes, wagging her tail to beg for mercy, as if pleading for the man to let her go. Nelia squatted down, suppressing the violent urge in his genes upon meeting a wolf. He cooperated by patting her head and then scratching her chin. With a smile on his face, Eve thought she had successfully fooled the man, so she wagged her tail even harder. As long as she could survive, acting cute was fine. Making the man smile, he thought to himself, actually, she doesn't need to do this. Then he made an excuse to go outside and chop wood. He finally relaxed, but the man outside sat down on the ground. If his younger sister hadn't stopped him, he would have almost killed the one he loved. The white wolf licked the little girl's cheek to thank her for saving her life, then lay down to sleep with her. But how to change back? She thought about it and fell asleep. Nelia entered the house again. Seeing she had returned to her original form, he breathed a sigh of relief and covered his wife with a blanket. Initially, when approaching Eve, he wanted to investigate if she was the werewolf who stole the heart of the dragon tribe that year. But he gradually fell in love with her and wanted to be with her forever, not wanted her to be hurt. But if she knew he had discovered her werewolf identity, would she run away? Therefore, he had to become her ideal type as soon as possible. Eve, in her sleep, wanting more warmth, unknowingly pulled the man into her arms. His heart soared to the heavens for a moment, then sank into the mud. A forbidden love between a dragon and a wolf. Would she be able to accept it? Oh God, if you truly exist, please let her love me as I love her. The dragon tribe leader fell in love with a werewolf, but the wolf girl has a special preference. She likes charming, tan men, so he spent all night researching pickup lines. The man not only learned how to be deliberately seductive, but also to say flirtatious things. Since the kidnapping incident, Eve didn't dare to leave them at home alone, so she always brought the two little ones with her everywhere. Zion said he wanted to go to the bookstore. There, she happened to see an adult romance novel. It reminded her of before she transmigrated into the novel. Her most enjoyable pastime was reading 18-plus novels, especially the genre where the male lead likes to cry for the female lead. Now, she had free time to read. After all, she no longer had to worry about earning money to move and raise her younger brother. So Eve happily paid, then asked the owner about books on the human world. But the owner told her that those books had long been banned. It turned out that too many werewolves had illegally migrated to the human world, causing unnecessary trouble. Therefore, the king of the human world had banned the sale of products related to the human world. Hearing these words, Eve felt very troubled. It seemed her secret plan to enter the human world had encountered more obstacles. Her expression was noticed by the sharp-eyed Rachel. She had said before that she wanted to move, so this was the reason. While the two siblings were sleeping, Rachel snuck into the room. Her future sister-in-law wanted to run away. The little girl was the first to disagree. To prevent this, she used fire magic, summoning a firebird to get the book from the top of the cabinet. She hid it secretly. It must be related to moving somewhere else to live. Rachel immediately opened it to look. What hit her eyes was an adult novel. The 18-plus content shocked her young mind. Rachel was extremely surprised. Could it be that she likes this? This is completely the opposite of her brother's style. She immediately ordered the bird to convey the exact content to her brother. At this time in the distant southern dragon tribe, Nelia was practicing crying, knowing Eve liked a guy who cries a lot. So, in the middle of the night, he ordered his secretary to find him the 10 best tearjerker stories in the world. But no matter what, he couldn't cry. Suddenly looking out the window, he saw a firebird perched there. He thought something had happened to Rachel. As a result, he saw an image that made him despair. It turned out he had been going in the wrong direction all this time. He was trying to become a cute, crying pretty boy, but his sister's intelligence showed that her favorite type was a sexy, tan man, completely different from his image. Were all his previous efforts in vain? To reconfirm, Nelia, despite his secretary's objections, transformed into a dragon and flew away, leaving behind the secretary's frantic complaints below. There's an important meeting in the north tomorrow. Why do you go there so often? Meanwhile, Eve was watching the two children play, carefree, feeling very envious. Recalling last night, she was ready to have a good time. But it turned out the content of the novel was not her favorite genre. Because she hadn't read a novel in a long time, she bought it without reading the summary. It's not that she dislikes muscular guys, but she prefers weaker, more pitiful guys. It's more heart-fluttering if he's beautiful, like Nelia. Daydreaming about a guy in broad daylight, Eve frantically shook her head to clear her thoughts. Suddenly, an unexpected explosion was heard. Nelia came out from the forest behind, but today wasn't the scheduled day to visit Rachel, making her wonder why he was here. The man seemed unhappy, not knowing what type Eve liked. To confirm for himself, Nelia undid 2 buttons on his chest, showing off his sexy collarbones and saying ambiguous words. I was tortured by the heat all night, so I came here to see you. Eve was so embarrassed, she screamed in her head. Isn't this a line from last night's novel? Why is Nelia getting closer and closer? Eve, help me cool down. His criminally handsome face made her unable to resist. Watching this scene from afar, Rachel was furious to see her brother not acting as expected. What the hell is he doing? He should at least get a tan before coming. All her attention was on her brother. She didn't even hear Zion calling her. Zion sulkily turned and walked away towards the forest. He didn't know that a man in black was hiding there. Hiding here was a wolf boy, naive and pampered by his sister since childhood. But ever since his brother-in-law arrived, his status had plummeted. His sister was cuddling with someone else, leaving her poor little brother lonely and cold. Heartbroken, he ran away from home, unaware of the approaching danger. The man in black was spying on him. He threw out a lure and waited for an opportunity. Zion, naturally curious, picked it up. A brilliant ruby sparkled brightly. It was the exact same color as Rachel's eyes. He was about to go back and give the stone to her, but was stopped by a strange person. It turned out that because the dragon tribe leader frequently went on dates in the north, the meeting room was filled with complaints. As the secretary predicted, the leader had a fit in the middle of the night, demanding he find romance books. So he deduced that the leader had a secret lover in the north. So he sent a chameleon to be the vanguard, using a gemstone refined from the leader's power to approach that person and conduct an experiment. If the other party was qualified, they could neutralize the gemstone's powerful energy. If not, they would turn to dust. The green-haired man approached approached the lonely wolf boy, telling him to give the gemstone to Eve. But his sister said that people who smile with their eyes squinted are all bad people. It seemed this boy wasn't easy to fool. The chameleon took off his hood. His green hair turned white, and he even showed off a hand that could change color at will. This was even cooler than Rachel's performances, making Zion exclaim, "That's amazing." Seeing the boy's guard was down, the chameleon began to charm him, pretending to ask, casually, "The thing in your hand seems very warm. Why don't you take it back to your sister? She'll surely like it." Unexpectedly, after hearing this, the boy froze. The word warm pierced the little wolf's heart. Tears streamed down his face, crying like a wounded puppy. She said Rachel's body is very warm, so she wants to hug her every day. On the other hand, I'm too cold. She doesn't like me anymore. Even if I give her the gemstone, it's useless. Who knew that crying was contagious? Seeing the boy cry made the chameleon cry too. After being comforted for a while, Zion calmed down. But the chameleon still hadn't forgotten the mission of his trip. He once again tempted Zion to give the gemstone to his sister. But then he saw the figure of his young lady. It turned out Eve was looking for the missing Zion. Upon seeing him, she was furious, scolding him. I was enjoying watching my brother and sister-in-law's sweet moment. But Zion's disappearance ruined my good mood. Get over here quickly before I get angry. Zion was instantly scared and ran over. A typical case of being afraid of his wife, leaving the chameleon stammering in fear. Faced with the young lady's questioning, he didn't answer truthfully. "I came to find the leader and the young lady, because you two have been gone for too long." If he told her the real plan, the young lady would surely flay him alive. But seeing what Zion was holding in his hand made her suspicious, so she ordered Zion to give it to her to handle. The young lady has fire magic. If she holds it, it will clash with the power in the gemstone. She will be injured, so he snatched it. But Rachel held on, not wanting to let go. In a moment of desperation, he put the stone in his mouth. Seeing this, Rachel anxiously chased after him, demanding he spit it out or his life would be in danger. Seeing that he wouldn't, Rachel threatened to use fire magic to make him spit it out. Unexpectedly, he accidentally swallowed it. As soon as he swallowed it, a lot of black smoke came out of his mouth. His whole body caught fire, making the man roar in pain, staggering towards the two for help. This terrifying scene scared the two children so much they almost wet their pants. Although very scared, Zion still tried to comfort Rachel with a trembling hand. "Don't be afraid, I'll protect you." At this moment, Eve arrived. Thinking this man wanted to harm the two children, she threw a frozen apple at him, knocking him unconscious, and grabbed his collar to warn him. But she didn't know that the man was about to die from the violent power within him. The explosion would not only spread everywhere, but also put her life in danger. Rachel fearfully took the blame, saying it was her fault things turned out this way. But her brother didn't scold her, and even took all the blame himself. Eve tried her best to save the man with ice magic. When the green-haired man woke up, his savior had come to give him water, smiling gently and showing concern. It was as if he was in heaven. But the next second, the boss pushed the door open with herbs in his hand. He gave him a death glare, as if he would pounce and beat the green-haired man to a pulp the next second. But he didn't dare to show his feelings. His whole body was filled with a murderous aura, until Eve went out to cook the medicine, leaving the two of them alone in the room. The green-haired man was terrified. "Angel, please don't leave. I'm going to die a miserable death." When Eve left, Nelia's murderous intent was fully revealed. The green-haired man immediately knelt down. He begged the man to forgive him for his reckless actions. "Please forgive me. We just wanted you to come back." But that wasn't what Nelia cared about. He patted his subordinate's shoulder. "I know you guys were thinking of me, but the real problem is that you nearly put Eve and the children in danger." His hand clearly tightened its grip. Feeling the leader's extreme anger, the green-haired man kept kowtowing and apologizing. He was willing to atone for this. The scene was witnessed by Eve, who came in with the medicine. The man immediately changed his expression, quickly helping the green-haired man back to bed, asking with concern if he had a fever, then placed a cold compress on his head. The green-haired man showed his belated good side to Eve. After doing all this, he approached Eve politely. Seeing the fake appearance the boss put on for the girl made the green-haired man wonder if he was seeing things. Then he suddenly reacted. The angel's sister had saved him with ice magic. But isn't ice magic a unique ability of the wolf tribe? Although this girl saved him, the dragon and wolf tribes have been enemies for generations. "Are you a werewolf?" he asked Eve bluntly. She was so worried she didn't know how to answer. Luckily, the two children came in and saved her from the predicament. Rachel jumped into her sister's arms. She smiled successfully and waved at her brother, signaling him to come closer. But the foolish brother stood still. Seeing this, the little girl grabbed her brother's collar. "You feel hot too, right, brother?" Nelia successfully embraced her and his sister in his arms. The scene looked like a warm family of three. Seeing their intimate gesture, the green-haired man guessed that she was most likely the leader's secret lover. He then asked about their relationship with Eve. She was about to explain that they had no relation to each other, but Rachel shyly cut in first. "She is my sister, and also my sister-in-law." With his sister's help, Nelia felt awkward, while Eve, after the shock, regained her composure. Nelia only asked her to take care of his sister. Rachel must have misunderstood because of this. She must see this as a family. Moreover, there are cultural differences between the North and the South. The word sister-in-law might have a different meaning. They had no idea that the little girl had intentionally said it for the green-haired man to hear. The purpose was to prepare for them to bring the two siblings to the dragon tribe. After his injuries improved, the green-haired man said goodbye to everyone and left. He wanted to tell this good news to all the dragons in the South, but on the way, he was stopped by the two siblings. Living in the North and knowing ice magic, it would be easy for the people of the South to guess she is a werewolf, which would lead to unforeseeable consequences. Therefore, the green-haired man had to explain clearly to everyone. The future wife of the dragon leader is not a werewolf, but a human who can use ice magic. To carry out this difficult and important task, Nelia gave the green-haired man full authority. But he didn't know this had raised the suspicion of the old butler. After the green-haired man returned to the South, he reported exactly as Nelia had instructed. But it couldn't stop the old butler's suspicion, because among those with ice magic, none were people he didn't know. It turned out that ever since the former leader and his wife died, due to the current leader's uncontrollable power, he had resolved to do everything to protect the Nelia brothers. Therefore, this butler had gathered all the famous ice mages in the world to control the leader's power, even secretly dealing with werewolves who possessed ice magic. But all had failed. So when he heard what the green-haired man said, he decided to go to the North for a trip to verify Eve's true identity. Meanwhile, Eve and Nelia took the two children to the bookstore they had visited before to buy more books. And Eve still wanted to find books about the human world. So when Nelia asked what book she was looking for, she stated her purpose. Since Eve knew her current identity was human, learning about the human world was nothing wrong. Hearing this, Nelia froze slightly. He didn't expect her to want to live in the human world. Did this mean his plan to pursue his wife was ruined? Therefore, when she asked if his southern region had that kind of book, Nelia smiled and made an excuse, saying, "I don't know either." By the way, Eve also asked him about Rachel calling her sister-in-law. Is there a difference in the meaning of this word between the South and the North? So Nelia blushed and replied, "The meaning of sister-in-law in the South is the wife of an older brother." Hearing him say that, Eve's face turned bright red with endless embarrassment. She didn't understand why Rachel called her that at the time. Seeing her so flustered, Nelia decided to speak his true thoughts. "I also hope those words are true," he slowly confessed. Then he explained that he was born with one heart, while dragons usually need two hearts to control their magic. Because of this, he couldn't control his power and ended up hurting his relatives and everyone around him. So he was forced to wear all kinds of support tools to control his power. But over time, they gradually lost their effectiveness. However, the first time he encountered Eve, miraculously, the power within him slowly calmed down. That was the first time he had felt so refreshed. This was the reason he didn't deny the word sister-in-law that Rachel used. Hearing the explanation, Eve breathed a sigh of relief, but also felt a little disappointed for reasons she didn't know. But she didn't know that it was just an excuse for him to hide his true feelings. Meanwhile, the butler had arrived in the icy South. Now he was standing on the street, shivering. He recalled the reason that led him to this situation. Thinking about this made him even angrier at the damn freezing weather here. As he was thinking, a voice suddenly rang out. "Uncle, are you cold?" It was Zion. The boy saw this uncle's nose running, so he came to ask. The butler bristled. "Was my nose ever running? Don't you see who this is?" But before he could finish, Zion took off his own scarf and gave it to him. I'm giving you this scarf." The boy smiled brightly like a little sun, making the butler feel warm inside. The cold outside seemed to be driven away. He shyly accepted the gift from the boy. When they became more familiar, Zion told him the reason he was there. It turned out that while he was busy chasing a cat, he got separated from Eve and the other two. After listening, the suspicious man said, "Ah, so you gave me the scarf so I would lead you to your family, right?" Zion immediately denied it. "I'm helping you because you're in trouble just like me. My sister said that if you help others, you will receive a blessing someday." Just as he was about to help this cute boy, Zion spotted his sister looking for him. The boy quickly and happily ran to Eve's side, leaving the butler all alone. Just as he was observing Eve, he suddenly caught two deadly glares from the two young masters. Terrified, he backed against the wall, thinking to himself, why is the leader here? Wait, if so, is this the mate Camel was talking about? Thanks to Zion, this butler immediately determined that Eve was a human, because only humans could be so gentle. Therefore, he hurriedly said goodbye to Zion and scurried back to the south, because the deadly glares of the two siblings terrified him. After saying goodbye to the butler, everyone split up to go to the market to buy food. However, while passing through a small alley, he suddenly noticed a group of thugs bullying a girl. It turned out that because werewolves of mixed blood often illegally migrated to the human world to live, they had tarnished the reputation of the wolf tribe. Therefore, the wolf tribe leader had sent people to capture them. But in reality, it was just an excuse to track down the siblings, Eve and her brother. As for the reason why, please continue watching. Eve heard this, her heart filled with worry, so she quickly ran away. She never expected that even though she lived so quietly, the wolf tribe leader still wanted to find the two siblings. This accelerated Eve's plan to go to the human world. When everyone returned home, Neria noticed that she looked unwell and asked with concern. But he happened to see the books about the human world on the table, and his expression completely changed. Rachel, who was beside him, also asked worriedly, "Do you want to go to the human world?" Eve intended to deny it, but the little girl cut her off that, "Don't hide it from me. I already know you want to find a way to the human world." Eve broke into a sweat, thinking to herself, how much does she know? Has my werewolf identity been exposed? Before she could finish her thought, Rachel threw herself into her arms, revealing that she had restored Eve's memories, knowing it was for the plan to lure her to live in the south. So the little girl revealed, "I think my brother mentioned earlier that there's a path from the south that leads to the human world, right, brother?" Then she glanced at her brother, signaling him to continue the fabrication. Catching his sister's signal, Neria immediately replied, "That's right. There was once a pact between the South and humans, so a path was opened. It's both fast and safe." Such an attractive offer made Eve hesitate for a moment. But the South is so dangerous. What if her identity is exposed? Suddenly, Neria gripped her hand tightly and said, "Eve, can I go to the human world with you? I will protect you." These words moved Eve, and she began to reconsider. Perhaps this was the last chance. If she kept delaying, the path to the south might also be blocked. So, Eve and Neria began to discuss the journey. Meanwhile, Rachel, standing aside, chuckled to herself, "Ha, go to the human world? She will be my sister-in-law. I will make her fall in love with the South, so she'll never think about that again." After they finished their discussion, Neria said goodbye to her to return to the South and handle the remaining matters. The two were reluctant to part. "I will come to pick you up as soon as possible." After saying that, he transformed into a dragon and flew away. She watched him and thought about the future. Will everything be all right? If Rachel gets home safely, she won't have a reason to look for me anymore. Then I can quietly go to the human world. Then she suddenly worried about his condition, but quickly dismissed the thought. A love between a wolf and a dragon is fruitless. So she immediately suppressed her feelings, turned around, and went into the house. Meanwhile, the wolf tribe leader had followed the trail to the doctor. He bribed the doctor with money, demanding him to reveal who had supplied the herbs. For the money, the doctor immediately gave her up. But after the job was done, the leader had his men drag him out to be dealt with. He picked up the drawing of Eve and said with a smile, "Now I can help you, Eve. Everyone, guess if this guy is a friend or a foe." A few days later, many strangers appeared at Eve's house. She was dumbfounded, not understanding why so many people had come. At that moment, Neria smiled and spoke, "Eve, I'm here to pick everyone up." Seeing this, she asked Neria what was happening. "Sorry if I surprised you. I brought people here to help you move. Although there are few of them, they all work very well." Eve exclaimed internally, "Few? You call this few?" He continued, "You just go and rest. I'll take care of the rest." Zion's voice caught Eve's attention. The little boy asked, "Are we leaving the north now?" "Yes, are you sad about it?" The boy shook his head and said, "As long as I'm with you, sister, I'll go anywhere. Does everyone have a younger brother as obedient and cute as this?" "Me too. Let's hurry to the warm place that Zion likes. The two siblings shared a warm hug, but this touching scene was quickly ruined by a loud, showy compliment from the accompanying crowd. Sob, sob, such touching sibling love. Do you think his lordship's mate is hiding in the forest? These words filled Eve's head with question marks. The leader really has a good eye. We could even hold the wedding right here. The next words directly petrified her. Mate, why is there such a rumor? She was about to explain when suddenly another voice rang out, cutting her off. Dahaha. It seems the South is leading the way in illegal immigration to the human world, isn't it? The one who arrived was S, the leader of the wolf tribe. He brought his men to accuse Neria, suspecting him of wanting to lure people from the north to get information about the wolf tribe. He turned to see who had been lured, but unexpectedly, it was the girl he had been searching for all this time. Ed spoke up, "Are you Eve?" He was about to joyfully run to her side, but Neria stopped him. Eve couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "We've been living in seclusion, just like you said. Leave us alone." It turned out that when he was young, the first time he saw Eve, he had strange feelings in his heart. But because he was too immature to recognize his own feelings, he resorted to tormenting her, leaving bright red tomato stains on the tree trunk. Because he wanted to atone for his past mistakes, he had been searching for Eve for a long time. Returning to the present, S didn't understand why she was so angry and wanted to quickly make up with her. But Eve's next words made him feel as if he had been plunged into ice. "You said it, so I will do as you wish. So don't bother anymore." He silently spoke his thoughts that I miss you. If you want to leave the North because of what happened in the past, you don't have to worry anymore. I've changed. Besides, I also have the power to protect you. At this moment, Neria spoke up to make his presence known. He would not allow anyone to take Eve from him. Perhaps there's a misunderstanding here. If Eve doesn't go to the human world, we will go to the South. Eve also spoke up to confirm that I don't want to live in the North anymore. If it were you, would you want to live here? He still wanted to hold on to her, spouting a bunch of sentimental things. But she just wanted him to shut his mouth because her werewolf identity was about to be exposed. Luckily, Rachel and the blue-haired one arrived in time to rescue her. The two, one setting up and the other delivering, revealed Eve's identity as the mate of the dragon tribe's leader for Ed to hear. Hearing what the two said, he was extremely shocked and waited for Eve's denial. But to stop him from bothering her anymore, Eve decided to admit it. "That's right, I am Noel's mate." Then she leaned close to him and whispered, "I'm sorry. I had to do that to make that annoying guy go to the South. I'll explain later." Neria only wished it were true. He wanted this title to be attached to Eve forever. So he quickly embraced Eve and summoned a firebird. "Let's go, my lady. Let's depart." Now they have arrived in the South. Neria suddenly held out his hand to Eve and stammered, "Take my hand." She didn't understand and asked if he had a fever. I just want you to always remember this beautiful scenery when you think of the South." She smiled softly, thinking to herself that he was so affectionate. But if he found out her identity, would he still treat her like this? As if knowing her worries, Rachel reassured her, "The things you're thinking about won't happen. I will always be by your side." This sentence made Eve suddenly think of what her mother had said. Dragons are kinder than we think. They are very gentle. So, Eve, when you meet dragons, please treat them well. Eve thought, Mom was right, they are very kind. Then she reached out and held his hand tightly, and together they gazed at the beautiful scenery. Upon entering the castle, Eve and Zion were both amazed by the natural scenery here. It was completely different from the South. This time, the butler could formally introduce himself. "Hello, everyone. I am Hopper, the leader's attendant. Although it's late, thank you all for your help." Hearing the name, Eve immediately realized this was the character mentioned in the original story, the one who hated wolves more than anyone. Therefore, she had to quickly find a way to leave before he discovered her identity. So she asked the butler. She wanted to go to the library to find books about the human world. In the history of dragons, they lived on the earth for a very long time. And with the help of the red dragon, they gradually adapted and resettled in the South. But these dragons would not yield to one another, so the beast people came to ask the red dragon for help. They elected the red dragon as their master. Meanwhile, humans and wolves misunderstood that he was invading the South, so they plotted against him, causing the leader to be seriously injured. A wolf stole his heart and fled. Lacking a heart, that leader found it difficult to control his power and eventually died. Thus, the war between the North and the South broke out, causing great damage. Thanks to the intervention of the humans, the fish people of the East, and the lions of the West who mediated, the war ended. There was a rumor that the wolf sold the heart to a dragon hunter with whom it had collaborated. Thus, the Second War between the South and humans broke out. From then on, all beasts and humans separated. The relationship between the North and the South could not return to how it was before. What? Is this all there is? Eve looked at the pile of books she had read. She couldn't find any useful information. She recalled from the original story that Eve had no influence on Neria, because if she did, she wouldn't have died in Rachel's flames. The more she thought, the more complicated she felt. What is the real connection between me and Neria? When Rachel arrived, she found her sleeping soundly on the table. Do you think the little girl would take Eve to her room? Don't expect anything when this little sister always wants her to become her sister-in-law. Haha, I should take her to the bridal chamber, right? So when Eve woke up, she was extremely shocked to find herself in sexy sleepwear in a strange room. She frantically ran to find everyone and found him sitting on a chair. She immediately asked why he was here. Neria replied that this was his room, leaving Eve shocked and speechless. She immediately wanted to leave, but he told her that since everyone in the castle thought she was his mate, they would be staying together. Seeing that Eve was unwilling, Neria even put on a piteous act, pretending to have a fever. This made her worried, and she pulled him onto the bed to treat him. She said heartbrokenly, "You haven't rested properly since coming to the South. You look so tired." He shyly said sweet nothings. "I'm just so happy to have Eve here." The lady couldn't hate his intention and was just worried he would get more of a fever because his face was as red as a tomato. Neria continued his attack, using his handsome face to charm Eve. "Can I hug you?" Without letting her react, he quickly hugged her tightly. This hug allowed Eve to hear Neria's rapidly beating heart. She thought to herself, is it because of me? If so, can I be a little ambitious? Therefore, Eve decided to probe a little that aren't you curious why I'm in the beast person world and not the human world? Aren't you curious why I lived in the North? Will you still let me even if I have wolf blood? Eve nervously awaited his answer. But unexpectedly, she was met with his astonished face. She thought she had asked a meaningless question and immediately wanted to get off him. But she unexpectedly slipped and fell right on top of Neria, making Eve endlessly embarrassed. Just then, he suddenly smiled and hugged her tightly, saying, "That's right, I'm very curious. I want to know everything about Eve, like your past, what your favorite food is. But perhaps there are things that are hard to say, so I don't want to force Eve out of greed. But no matter what Eve's circumstances are, my feelings for you will never change." The moment she heard that, Eve let down all her defenses, telling Neria about her childhood and thinking to herself, "Although I can't confess that I'm a half-wolf tonight, thinking of that smile makes me think that when he finds out my identity in the future, Noel will accept it." That thought put Eve at ease, and she fell asleep in Neria's arms. Meanwhile, as soon as Zion woke up, he immediately wanted to find his sister, but was stopped by Rachel. How could she let this awkward kid bother her brother and sister-in-law during a romantic moment? Therefore, she tricked Zion into writing a commitment with the following conditions if he wanted to become a strong man. First, absolutely do not go to his sister's room at night. As soon as he wrote the first rule, Zion's eyes filled with tears, and he said, "But I still can't sleep alone. I'm scared of the dark." This left Rachel speechless, so she stated the second rule. Rule 2, when you're scared, you must go to Rachel's room opposite. You're not allowed to go to any other room. Rachel watched him write and thought to herself, so cowardly, just like an idiot. A new couple is slowly forming. The next morning, what greeted Eve's eyes was a strong, pale chest and six-pack abs, which made her freeze up completely. She immediately sat up, covering her blushing face with her hands. Even more deadly, he asked with his handsome, charming face, "Did you sleep well? If you don't mind, can I hug you a little longer?" Sisters in front of the screen with a boyfriend like this would surely be head over heels, right? Haha. With that, he hugged Eve tightly, enjoying her warm embrace. Then he blushed and said, as expected, Eve's hugs are the best. Oh my, even I'm smitten with him, let alone our female lead. Suddenly, a knock on the door shattered this ambiguous atmosphere. It turned out to be the maid, Julie Kara, who would be serving her from now on. As a rabbit beast person, she has sensitive ears. So when she came to serve Eve in the morning, she accidentally overheard the conversation that could lead to a misunderstanding. And this is an illustration of what Julie imagined. A misunderstanding has occurred. Haha. Do you have such a thoughtful boyfriend? Not only did he prepare a lavish feast for his girlfriend, but he also went to buy her beauty lip balm. Truly a perfect man. At this point, the two started flirting with her at the dining table. "You were very sweet and lovely last night." This made Eve blush. "It's not what you think. I just really like the scent on your body." Suddenly, Zion's voice rang out, saving her from this embarrassing situation. "Sister, I slept alone yesterday. Aren't I great?" Rachel also ran in after him, scolding the boy. "Why are you running so fast? I can barely keep up." With that, she ran to Eve for a hug. The two hugged and smiled happily. My girl is all grown up, isn't she? Seeing the three of them laughing and joking happily, Neria felt very happy. Because after his parents passed away, this was the first time he had seen Rachel smile so brightly. Of course, it was thanks to Eve and Zion. Isn't that what he had always wished for? Because of this, Neria silently made a resolution that I don't want to care about that legend anymore. Right now, she is my wife, the one who will always be with me. I will always love you. But suddenly, a mysterious voice whispered in his ear, "Oh, you believe her? She's just a liar." He turned around to see who it was, but there was only a servant behind him. This voice felt strangely familiar to him. To keep a wife for her brother, Rachel worked very hard. She meticulously planned to fascinate Zion with new things. She took Eve on a tour everywhere, showing her how wonderful the South was to make her stay. Just as Eve was happily enjoying these things, a disaster occurred. The wolf tribe leader, S, had chased her to the south and continued to harass her. "Eve, I've found you." Luckily, Rachel quickly used her fire magic to block the madman. She couldn't let her sister-in-law be taken away. It was so hard to lure her here. I can't let anything happen. But as just a young dragon, how could she defeat a wolf tribe leader? So she was knocked unconscious by him. Then he approached her and said, "The South is a scary place. Let's go back to the North." These words completely enraged Eve that I will kill you. With that, she reached out and choked him, making S unable to move. A power exploded within Eve. The surrounding air seemed to want to freeze. When everyone heard the noise and ran over, everything was already over. The members of the wolf tribe were completely unconscious before Eve's power. When S opened his eyes, he found himself tied to a pillar. He was still trying to understand what happened when Eve. He heard Eve's voice telling the knights that she had something she wanted to check. Eve recalled the moment she used ice magic to kill him, but it seemed she had hit something. To be precise, it felt like she had replenished S's skills, just like what she had done with Neria. But that didn't matter anymore. Now, she just wanted to deal with the man in front of her. Eve sat down in front of him and asked, "Why do you keep chasing me? You were disgusted by me, weren't you?" He regretted what he had done to her as a child and begged her for another chance. Eve recalled the past she had endured. Just because her father was human, no one looked for him when he went missing. Her mother, after giving birth, fell ill and died without a doctor or midwife. And her little brother, who had never seen his parents since birth, tell me, why should I return to that hell? S opened his mouth to apologize, but how could a late apology make up for the suffering she had endured? If you feel guilty, even a little bit, don't say anything about me, and don't ever show up here again. With that, she opened the door and left, as if to say goodbye to this painful past. After receiving the news, Neria and the other dragons were furious and wanted to declare war on the North. But Rachel stopped them. It seemed she didn't want a war to break out, because its consequences were terrible. Ed had fled, leaving behind an apology. That night, Neria went to the scene of the incident to investigate further and found that there were absolutely no traces of magic, which made him suspicious. And Eve had defeated the wolf tribe leader. No matter how strong, it's hard for a mixed blood to catch up to a pure blood. Moreover, to leave no trace like that, the magic must have been nullified. He suddenly remembered the first time they met. His magic had been nullified in the same way, as well as what she had said about her father being human, but able to use ice magic. Sometimes he could, sometimes he couldn't, and he could make snow melt. He seemed to have figured out the truth of the matter. Neria immediately ordered the butler to write a top-secret letter to the human king. He needed to discuss this matter immediately. Suddenly, a servant came to tell him that something had happened. Rewinding time to earlier, Julie and Eve were having a picnic to cheer up. Eve had consulted her about what she would do if she knew her fate was to be murdered. If it were me, I'd just try to face it. If it's destiny, running away won't solve the problem. So try to face it so you won't have any regrets. Everyone in front of the screen, be like this pink-haired girl. Even if we don't know the future, let's just give it a try. Who knows? We might succeed. I wish everyone success in everything. Hearing Julie's words, Eve gained more strength. She downed a glass of wine in her hand in one gulp. Why did I even think about running away? If Zion and I leave, what will happen to Noel and Rachel? If his mate doesn't appear, the two of them will go through the same tragedy as in the original story. I want to create a brighter future. So when he arrived, he found his wife completely drunk and causing a scene. Seeing him arrive, she happily called his name in a sweet voice, making the young man blush. The female chef came over to apologize for letting Eve get this drunk. But before Neria could say anything, she stepped forward and hugged the female chef, protecting her. This made him jealous, so he quickly went over and took her into his arms, stopping Eve from drinking anymore. She turned and hugged him tightly, fawning over him. So warm, the leader's chest is amazing. These words made the man's heart blush like a tomato. But he didn't expect that in the next second, Eve would reveal her wolf ears and tail, frightening everyone there. They never expected the leader's mate to be an enemy of the dragon tribe. Before they could say anything, Neria gave an order that I will make a proper announcement about what you are seeing later. But if anyone lets their tongue wag before then, I will not let it slide. Waking up the next morning, Eve noticed that his expression wasn't very good, but she had no memory of what she did last night. She thought worriedly, my memory is fragmented. I'm still alive, so he probably hasn't found out I'm a wolf, right? Just as she was about to ask for more tea, he pushed her hand away, causing all of it to spill on the mattress. It seems something happened last night. I'm sorry. I'll call a servant to change the sheets for you. I have a meeting today, so I probably can't eat with you. Then, watching his retreating back, Eve had no idea what was going on. What on earth did she do last night? For a week after that, she couldn't talk to Noel. It was even difficult to see him. Meanwhile, Eve had completely adapted to the South. The servants were still enthusiastic with her, as if nothing had happened. During afternoon tea with the kids, Eve completely broke down, unable to find an answer for why Neria was avoiding her. So she asked the maid beside her about the incident that night. Julie, feeling guilty, lied, and oh, nothing happened. However, Eve knew she was lying just by looking at her expression, so she kept pressing. Seeing this, Rachel could only sigh. She remembered that early morning before Eve woke up, he had told her that Eve had revealed her identity while drunk. He didn't seem surprised at all, which made her realize that her brother had discovered Eve's identity a long time ago, but pretended not to know. She wanted Eve to realize that people didn't hate or despise her because of her werewolf identity, and then Eve would reveal her identity on her own. Because she was the one who saved him and helped them, there was no reason for them to object. Just then, Rachel, at a loss for what to do, Nelia spoke up. We just need to keep a secret. Then he told the butler to explain everything to the young lady. It turned out that throughout the evening, the butler had relayed his words to all the servants. Before she revealed her identity herself, it was forbidden to say anything related to it. If anything was revealed, everyone understood the consequences. People began to gossip about her identity. They worried, what if she was like that wolf leader? But the pink-haired and blue-haired duo spoke up in support. She listed the leader's good qualities and his love for her, which won everyone over. They would wait until she opened her heart. At this moment, the cat in the tree had overheard all of this. The dragon's lover is a wolf? That's quite some expensive information. Everyone, guess which faction this cat is a spy for? Nelia was seriously working at this time when he suddenly remembered a certain scene, and his face turned beet red. The secretary beside him was startled, and the pen suffered along with him. It turned out that on that night, after taking Eve to her room, she groggily asked who had brought her back. He smiled apologetically and replied, "Sorry, I'm Noel." He had originally intended to take her to Zion's bedroom, but her ears were showing, so there was no other choice. As he was thinking this, he suddenly heard Eve say, if it's Noel, it's okay because Noel is my husband." Even though he knew it was just drunken talk, he couldn't help but blush. Then he heard her continue, "I have a big secret. I'll reveal it to you first. Everyone expects our girl to reveal her identity, right? Wrong, it's this image. The two kissing passionately under the dim moonlight. Eve smiled and revealed, "I want a good night kiss from Noel." After that, she fell into a deep sleep, leaving him still immersed in that passionate kiss. After that day, every time Nelia saw Eve, he felt an overwhelming surge of emotion. I'm going to hurt her. So that's the reason he avoided her every day. Back to the present. This time Eve was determined to go to his office to get to the bottom of it, that I'm not avoiding you. Hearing that, Eve said, "If I did anything disrespectful to Noel that night, then I apologize. Although I'm not very clear on it. You could do the exact same thing to me if you want. Our girl has walked right into the trap. Do you know what he wants to do to you?" The voice in his head rang out again. "Seize her. Devour her completely, leaving not a single bone fragment. Stop pretending to be noble. Isn't this what you want?" Nelia immediately used what little reason he had left to tell Eve to leave. For now, he didn't want to talk anymore. She saw that he didn't look well and wanted to reach out to heal him, but was unexpectedly shoved away by him. She didn't expect him to have such a strong reaction. As she was about to ask again, Nelia left her with an apology and ran off. In the western region, the lion leader also received the news. The dragon's mate is a wolf. It was this girl who had reported the news to the leader and promised that she would bring authentic evidence. After that, she returned to the southern region to gather information to sell to the lion. She was seen chewing the same green grass that Eve had mistakenly eaten before. Then she turned into a cat, jumped into the castle, and began her money-making mission. But unfortunately for her, after several hours of walking, she couldn't find any news, which made the cat so angry her fur stood on end. Suddenly, Zion appeared from nowhere and lifted the cat up. Mia saw this as an opportunity to entice Zion to take her to Eve. A person and a cat, looking pitiful, went to see Eve, but she unintentionally told him to put the cat back where it was. But there was no way. Now that the cat had gotten in here, she wouldn't leave voluntarily. So Mia jumped onto the table where Eve was sitting to see what story she was reading. The Legend of the Dragon? What does she want to know? Then the cat recalled the conversation between Eve and Julie. That day, were both the leader and his mate deceiving each other? It seems the matter is more complicated than I thought. But in the eyes of this greedy cat, the more complicated the matter, the more valuable it was to sell the information to the lion leader on the other side. So Mia decided to dig deeper into this matter. She raised her cat paw and turned to the page that could resolve Eve's worries. The words, "The ruler of the East can see the truth," struck her. It made Eve remember that in the original story, the merman was a righteous character. The merman leader was the only one who stopped Rachel from massacring the North. With that kind of personality, perhaps she could get their help. Therefore, Eve decided to go to the merfolk and continue to keep it a secret from Nelia. She hoped to reveal this secret herself. These past few days, Nelia's mental state had been deteriorating more and more. He asked the butler if he was like him when he met his wife, with a constant voice telling him to possess and devour her, driving him mad. So he said he wanted to go out for some fresh air. He felt like he couldn't hold on much longer, so he asked the butler, "If I go mad, you know what to do, right?" Hearing this, Hopper could only clench his fists and reply, "Yes, how could I forget your request?" That evening, after finishing her book, Eve was about to go out for some fresh air when she happened to meet him at the door. He also didn't expect to see her here at this hour. How long had it been since the two of them had met like this? So Eve wanted to be a little closer to him, but he took a step back, not letting her get near him. He didn't want to hurt her at all, but in Eve's eyes, it was a sign of avoidance, that he didn't want to see her. Therefore, Eve rushed in front of him and said angrily, "Look into my eyes and tell me." But she quickly discovered his body temperature was extremely high, making her so worried that she forgot all about her previous anger. Eve's initiative made his reason fly away. Neria moved closer and kissed Eve's lips. Then the two of them hugged for a long time. After he recovered, he told Eve to get some rest soon and then left. Eve thought about the times he came to find her. This phenomenon also happened frequently. This made her think of that event. Could it be that the rage is approaching? It was clear in the original story that Noel's rage would occur on the day Rachel held her succession ceremony. Could it be that for some reason the original story has changed? Why? Then suddenly Eve thought of a possibility. Have I become too greedy? Just because I wanted to be with him, have I stopped being a supporting character in this story? Therefore, she decided to go to the East to ask about her own true meaning of existence. When Zion had just woken up and come out, his sister informed him that she was going to the East right now. The boy immediately insisted on going with her, but was opposed by Eve because it might be dangerous there. Just then, Mia appeared and said she could take the two of them to the East safely. Nothing in this world is free, so Eve immediately became wary and asked her purpose. Mia immediately explained that her client was just curious about her story, so the cat had to collect the whole story. She reassured Eve not to worry, because no one would be foolish enough to harm the dragon's mate. Hearing this, she gradually felt more at ease and got on Mia's magic carpet. She wanted to find out the truth quickly before Noel's rage occurred. The next morning, everyone discovered that the two siblings had disappeared. They searched frantically, but found nothing. Nelia blamed himself. Is it because of me? Is it because of my greed? When I acted impulsively, she couldn't even breathe normally. I was scared when I caught a glimpse of her losing her composure. Maybe she wanted to leave this place. I should have waited until everything was confirmed. I couldn't bear it. It's my fault. Seeing her brother like this, Rachel wanted to do something. The little girl then summoned her Firebird and requested it to find the owner of this ring. After Eve woke up, she found herself in a strange land. Seeing her awake, Mia greeted her enthusiastically. That you're awake? We're almost there. She grabbed this one by the collar and shook them frantically. Arrived where? Don't think I don't know. I haven't even seen a single drop of water. Does this look like the East? Listen to me. The entrance to the ocean is currently closed. Mia explained in a fluster. The reason is currently unknown, but the leader of the Merfolk clan has kept the castle gates closed for the past few years. Therefore, I can't enter through the official route. Eve asked worriedly, so what do we do now? There's a large market in the West. To put it simply, it's a place where everyone gathers information. The West is an economically developed region, more than anywhere else. Won't there be a ton of information? Especially since I have a colleague who is a wise merchant. He definitely has a way into the Merfolk castle. At this point, Eve had no choice but to agree. This handsome, muscular man is Sheba, the merchant friend of Mia. The two siblings, Eve and Zion, entered, greeted him, and stated their purpose. Since she was brought by Mia, he gave her some leeway. Sheba placed a box on the table and said, no matter how pure and innocent the Merfolk are, their personalities will differ. Do you have any jewelry? In the box was a luxurious, expensive ruby. Jewelry? They usually like beautiful things. Among them, they like expensive jewelry the most. There are several factions among the Merfolk. If you give them something truly valuable, some Merfolk might give us a small clue or everything. Hearing this, Eve said she was doomed. Sheba beside her also nodded. That's right. It's very difficult to have enough jewelry to satisfy the Merfolk. Who would have thought that in the next second his jaw would drop? Eve smiled brightly. The only thing I have right now is money. I don't think they like money because it's too common and trivial. You sell jewelry here, right? Seeing this, Sheba immediately changed his attitude. Yes, my wealthy lady. A customer with money is a god. Eve and Mia immediately went to the gemstone seller to buy everything. And a person in a cloak also came over, saying they wanted to buy all the gemstones here, but was informed by the owner that they were sold out, which made him very disappointed. Standing to the side, she thought that she wouldn't use all of them anyway, so she offered them to him. If you need it urgently, I'll give it to you. I only bought it because it was beautiful anyway. Unexpectedly, he directly took her hand and sincerely thanked her. You are so kind. I will not forget this favor. The part of our girl that fawns over handsome men resurfaced. Oh my, a beautiful man. That face made me stop caring about him, casually holding my hand. She quickly snapped out of her admiration for his beauty and turned to leave. Thank you for looking after Zion. Even though it's a small thing, I will also reward you handsomely. Yes, the aura of a wealthy person made Sheba submit. As for Mia, who had been with her all day and received nothing, this money-loving cat was not pleased. After preparing everything, Eve was about to set off, but was held back by Zion pulling on her dress. Can we stay a little longer? Because I'm scared of water. The boy trembled pitifully, leaving Eve speechless at her weak-willed little brother. Watching the two siblings argue, Sheba could only advise Eve to let her brother stay. Merfolk are creatures with pure souls. I don't have the ability to see into souls, but looking at your brother's personality, he is a very pure and harmless person. Therefore, someone will target him. If I like something, I will also take it by any means necessary. Hearing this, Eve immediately became worried, but she didn't know who to entrust the boy to. So he offered to take care of the boy, because being with Zion felt healing to him. It turned out that while they were playing, Sheba had asked the boy, in your opinion, what's the most surprising thing since you came here? I was surprised by the wide river, but the wind is very hot. Oh, and your eye color too. The boy smiled like an angel and praised, my eyes are only blue, but your eyes have a very splendid color, like purple, blue, and yellow mixed together. It looks like a real gem. These words, to Sheba, who had lived for 20 years without ever being praised, sounded like an angel's voice. So Eve felt at ease leaving Zion in his care. She said goodbye to the two of them and set off to find the truth. At this time, Zion wondered why the shop's name was Bad Cat. This surprised Sheba, because in the Beastman world, they can't distinguish the human alphabet, so it's often used as a kind of code. How could the boy understand it? Moreover, even in the human world, writing is only used by the upper class. Therefore, he was suspicious and was about to ask for the boy's surname. But an incident suddenly occurred. Sand was seen swirling endlessly. A person appeared within it and grabbed the hand of Zion. Rachel asked furiously, why are you here? What were you thinking, leaving without a word? Hearing him cry out in pain, Rachel suppressed her anger, let go of his hand, and asked, where is Eve? Hearing him say that his sister had gone to the east surprised the little girl. She thought that her sister had run away back to the human world, that let's go find her together. No, she told me to wait here, and besides, I'm afraid of water. Rachel was possessed by an overbearing so that if you don't want a single drop of water to touch you, you just need to stay by my side. These words made Zion's little heart flutter. Little hearts shot out everywhere. Therefore, the boy no longer hesitated. He immediately said goodbye to Sheba to go with his future wife. On Nelia's side, his hands were tied because people sent by the emperor had come to find him. We have received all the documents you sent, but the emperor said that he does not approve. He does not want a similar incident to happen in the future. He laughed coldly, huh? Tell His Majesty that there will be no change. No way. With that, he turned and left, just wasting my time. But maybe it's for the best. She is so pure. It's best not to let her know about this. It will surely hurt her. Has everyone guessed what it is yet? Leave a comment below. If I find her, I will definitely beg for her forgiveness. I'm sorry for pushing you away. I won't force you anymore. So please come back to my side. Eve is a person with a forgiving heart. She will definitely come back, and I will make up for everything she likes. I won't let her be troubled. That way, she can stay here longer. But that enchanting voice echoed in his head again. Why do you keep thinking such foolish thoughts? Devour her, then she will be yours forever. Eve arrived in the east, but was prevented from going down to the sea. Even bribing the guards didn't work for Eve. She sat in a corner, sulking. What should I do? I don't have much time left. I have to find a way to resolve Noelle's rage as soon as possible. Just then, a mysterious person appeared and asked if she wanted to meet Jen. She confusedly said, so that person named Jen. Before she could finish, she was warned by that person. Add an honorific to that. She is not someone whose name you can call so casually. You've brought quite a lot. Jen will surely like it. You'll get the answer you want. Follow me. Although she knew it would be dangerous, Eve still plunged ahead because she knew she was out of time. Eve pretended to be someone coming to listen to a sermon. When she entered, she saw a whole group of people praying. Looking around, she felt like this was a missionary place. It felt a bit strange. When Jen appeared, the followers immediately became fervent. Everyone is still full of life today, my followers. Oh, it seems we have a newcomer. Please introduce yourself to everyone. Suddenly being called out startled Eve. She had no chance to escape. In order not to arouse suspicion, Eve could only pretend to be a follower. I heard of your reputation and came here. It's good to be here. Your perfect appearance cannot be described with words. Oh, thank you. Eve thought she had escaped suspicion, but she was caught by her guard. I will listen while I investigate the wolf lady. Ah, hearing that, Eve was extremely surprised. She didn't expect that with just one look, she had figured out her wolf identity. It turned out the blonde young man Eve met when buying jewelry was the Merman Prince. At this moment, he was being scolded by his father for not buying enough jewelry for him to maintain his power. Therefore, he had to continue buying gemstones from all over the world. On his way, he was stopped by Mia. The cat quickly jumped at his face and cried out, I met you in the West. My friend was captured by some cultists. Please save her. Wait, explain everything to me first, then I can find a solution. The butler suddenly spoke up. Young master, it seems this cat has just escaped from the Siren's mansion. Then this matter has become difficult. Going there empty-handed is no different from suicide. But if we lead soldiers there, it could lead to armed conflict. At this moment, the magic gate behind the Merman Prince lit up. It's been a long time, successor leader. Since I was promoted, this is the first time we've faced each other again. Want to cooperate with me? The person who arrived was none other than Nelia. Obviously, he already knew everything. The scene changes to Eve's side. Seeing that she didn't want to say why she came here, Jen used magic to read her memories. This is your life? You've lived quite happily. But then she suddenly screamed, leaving Eve confused. What secret did she discover? What's with that female-dominant, male-submissive couple? This question made Eve freeze up completely. The innocent Jen continued to ask, what is she sitting on? It can't be a person, can it? He calls her master? Her feet. Why use her feet like that? Is he enjoying it or disgusted by it? Why is your head full of such perverted things? Eve's whole body lost its color. Even if you're going to read my mind, why read those memories? But luckily, she didn't dare to read any further. But Eve didn't know that these things had opened up a new horizon for this girl, that I think I have a new hobby. He really is a frog in a well. Could it be that she has become a fan? I almost lived my whole life without knowing about these interesting things. Eve felt it was a pity. If not for this situation, perhaps the two of them could have become friends who share stories about dominant women and submissive men. Because you were the one who introduced Jen to such interesting things. She will tell you the story of the red-haired Siren's family. After the power struggle ended, the defeated Sirens had to live in hiding. Because legend says that the red-haired Siren tried to kill the former leader. They were not welcomed even among Sirens. Even if they were wronged, they could do nothing, and so they died in solitude. She didn't want to live like that, so she came ashore and gave people advice by reading their thoughts. Gradually, they gathered and gave her anything in exchange for advice. Therefore, she is now the one who holds absolute power, no longer the Siren who had to suffer injustice as before. Did I finish my story? So now, I'll take the liberty of reading the wish you had when you came here. When you wake up will depend on your luck. At this moment, in Eve's mind, there was only his image. I thought I could see that neat face one more time before saying goodbye to Noelle. Ah, Just then, the mansion suddenly exploded violently. Everyone was lying around, unconscious. It turned out that the explosion was caused by the power of the Red Dragon. Nelia had cooperated with the Merman Prince to rescue Eve. At that moment, another explosion occurred, but it came from the power of the merfolk. The consequence of this was that Eve's soul entered the body of the butler next to Prince Henry. The red-haired siren did not escape this either. She entered the body of her subordinate next to her. As Jin was about to find her own body, she ran into Zion, who was looking for Jesse. Seeing Zion cry made Jin feel flustered, but don't cry anymore. Do you want to find your sister Ruby in a safer place with me? It's just that I'm slightly injured right now. So once I recover a little, I'll be able to find your sister Ruby. Who would have thought that a spear would fly past where the two were sitting, almost injuring them? The one who threw it was the commanding officer of the Merfolk army. He ordered Jin to release the boy and surrender obediently. When she was about to explain that she was only trying to protect the child, he showed a contemptuous expression and said, "Did I ask you, you idiot?" Truly the shame of the Merfolk. These words hurt Jin's pride. She didn't want to be a good person anymore. Fine, I'll do as you say and see what happens. With that, she turned and drew a dagger, intending to show him just how cruel a siren can be. Before she could act, Zion managed to arrive in time. Get away from Zion. The little girl was furious that someone was threatening Zion's life. She was about to unleash her power when she saw him worriedly calling her name. Rachel immediately stopped her magic. Let's go, Zion. We have to find your sister quickly. Oh, okay. But just now, her face darkened. Did I scare you? I was rash again. Everyone is afraid of my power. Is he the same? Who would have thought that in the next second, Zion would tightly grasp the little girl's hand, his voice full of admiration. You were so cool. You're amazing, Rachel. These words made the person who everyone would fear in the future blush with embarrassment at this moment. Rachel immediately pushed him away as, "Oh, annoying. Don't look at my face." Why? Because my face looks evil. What are you talking about? To me, you are the most beautiful person in the world. Who could resist this kind of flirting? So Rachel immediately turned and ran away. Seeing that they had left, Jin took this opportunity to try to return to her body. But when she opened her eyes again, she had entered Eve's body, which drove her crazy. She was about to try again, but ran into Nelia, who was anxiously searching for Eve. Meanwhile, Eve, who was in the butler's body, was stunned to find herself in a different body. Henry, beside her, asked suspiciously, "Have you been to the West before?" "At the jewelry store. Your soul is very special, so I remember it clearly." Suddenly, a tremor hit, startling the two people and one cat. Oh no, the Southern leader's power is increasing. We must leave here quickly. Hearing this, she became extremely worried about him and wanted to rush inside to find him, but was stopped by Henry. "I don't know what's going on, but it's very dangerous now. The most dangerous person right now is Noel." With that, she ran off. Nelia, currently unaware that another soul was in his wife's body, explained with a trembling voice, "Eve, please listen to what I have to say. It won't be long. Please give me a chance to explain." Jin backed away in shock. This action made him feel desperate. He trembled as he begged for forgiveness. "From now on, I won't do anything you don't like. So please don't leave me." From the moment Nelia touched her, Jin unintentionally saw the memories he had experienced with Eve. Her why? She felt as if she was about to be eaten alive by the evil dragon. "I had heard the rumors that the Southern leader went to meet his girlfriend, but I didn't expect it to be that woman. Is this real love? Are his feelings for this woman possessiveness? No, it's more than that. Isn't it more like lust?" Jinzo was scared and thought, "I have to escape first. I have to get away from this monster." Before she could do anything, a force pushed her soul out and back into its old body. Unexpectedly, after running just a few steps, she was caught by Henry. What kind of emotional entanglement do these two have? At this moment, Eve had returned to her body. She immediately checked his current body condition. But unexpectedly, she heard him say, "I'm sorry. I was rash with you without thinking. Maybe you don't want me to touch you, but I was worried you would get hurt if you fell." He desperately pleaded, "Please stay by my side a little longer. Noel, you're not a burden at all. I want to help Noel. That's why I came here. But maybe in the end, I've caused trouble for you." "For you, that's right. Because my magic can't lower Noel's temperature. I wanted to find another way, so I left without a word. I don't think I have much time left. I'm sorry for not being able to help you then. If I were really Noel's girlfriend, I could have solved the problem." He hugged her tightly. "It's not like that. My temperature rises when I have trouble controlling my emotions. I thought I couldn't solve it, so I didn't dare tell you. So that's how it was. Eve thought it was time to let him know her identity. Just as she was about to speak, the ceiling could no longer hold and collapsed, causing the words she wanted to say to get stuck in her throat. "Excuse me for a moment." Saying that, Noelle carried Eve in a princess hold and quickly ran outside. Just as they got out, Detro ran towards her. She asked urgently, "Are you okay, sister? Are you hurt anywhere? Who would do this to my sister? Let me see. I'm fine." Neria, beside them, worriedly asked her mischievous younger sibling, "Hey, why did you come to this dangerous place?" Unexpectedly, upon hearing this, Detro burst into tears. The little girl blamed her for leaving, which scared her very much, worried that she had abandoned the two siblings. "I'm sorry. Were you very worried? I used to think no one would worry if I disappeared, because I'm just Noelle's fake girlfriend. My desire is growing. Even if it means lying for the rest of my life, I want to live with these people. I don't want to reveal my identity because I don't want to be abandoned again." Jen was captured and took all the blame. Henry also apologized and introduced himself as the next leader of the East. This surprised Eve. It was clear that in the original story, the next leader of the East was someone with fiery red hair. It's strange. Something is very strange. Therefore, Eve suggested delaying Jen's punishment for a while so she could clarify this. But the butler unintentionally refused because Jen had been causing trouble for the East for a long time. Seeing this, Eve could only take a step back, asking to be allowed to interrogate her. Despite the butler's objection, Henry still decided to let her do this. When they arrived at the prison, Jen told Eve, "It's all my fault. Please spare the others. They're all good people. Please punish only me, Eve." Unexpectedly, a siren, famous in legends for her malice and skill in charming people, could protect others like this. Without them, I wouldn't have survived to this day. I don't want to be like this either, but if I don't follow this path, no one will accept me. I did it just to survive like other abandoned people. This completely touched Eve's heart. Looking at this girl, Eve felt as if she saw a shadow of her past self in her. So she wanted to help this pitiful girl. After finishing the interrogation, she went to see Henry and asked him to let her have an audience with the leader of this place. But Henry disagreed because his father does not accept requests for direct meetings like that. Seeing this, Noelle immediately stood up to help his wife. "Don't you know that disrespecting my girlfriend is the same as disrespecting me? Does the next leader of the East not understand the most basic rules of etiquette?" Seeing his murderous face, Henry immediately bowed his head and agreed to take the two of them. Suddenly, he whispered in her ear, "Be careful, Eve. There's a strange energy lingering around all over the castle." When they reached the leader's room, Henry reminded her to be generous and forgive his strange behavior. But Eve noticed his hand was trembling. Was he afraid of something? As soon as she entered, Eve was surprised by the sight before her. The Merman King was that old? While praising the prince's workability, he finally noticed Eve. "Who is this, Harry? You're really good. You've already brought your lover home to meet me." Seeing his misunderstanding, Eve intended to explain, but Noelle spoke up to assert his claim. "Long time no see, Eastern leader. When I became the leader, you blocked the entrance to the sea. It seems you don't know that I have a mate." The king turned to ask his son what was going on. Harry nervously explained that a major incident had occurred in the Siren's territory that day, and because it was an emergency, he handled it immediately and didn't have time to report. But before he could finish his sentence, the expression on the prince's face changed. The king's face revealed a grim look, his eyes flashing with a horrifying glint. "You dare to go there? How many times have I told you not to enter the Siren Palace? So foolish." He cursed as he raised his hand, intending to strike Harry. But Eve immediately spoke up to stop him. Then his eyes flashed with a purple light. "How strange. I haven't received any news about the southern leader having a mate." Hearing this, Eve couldn't help but worry that this light couldn't deceive the mere folk, and she wondered what to do now. But then the king softened his tone, apologized for his lack of knowledge, and admitted his fault for having incompetent subordinates. He introduced himself as Minteradoro, the Eastern leader. Eve was surprised to see that he couldn't read her thoughts, and the king turned to ask Harry what the purpose of bringing them here was. He respectfully replied that the red-haired siren had harmed the southern leader's mate. Although it was the siren's action, the incident occurred in the Eastern Territory, so he brought the two here as a sincere apology. The king also nodded in agreement, lamenting that they had endured many hardships coming here. Eve listened to the conversation, unable to shake her suspicion. Something was not right. Why didn't the king know she was a fake mate? Yet he showed hostility when the word mate was mentioned. At that moment, Noelle called her, pulling her out her thoughts. He asked with concern because he saw her complexion was not good. Meanwhile, upon hearing Eve's name, the king glanced at her with a deep look and asked if her name was Eve. Although she didn't understand why he asked that, she still nodded in acknowledgement. The king expressed his regret for only now learning her name. He apologized deeply on behalf of the East for the suffering she had endured and offered that if she had any requests or compensation, she should just say so. The king also proposed organizing a party to make up for not being able to host them properly. Noel replied that he would follow Eve's decision. Eve agreed on the surface, but couldn't help but feel suspicious inside. The more she investigated the East, the stranger things became. There's a legend that red-haired sirens are cursed. So why did the original Eastern leader have red hair? And why couldn't the mere folk in front of her read her thoughts? Everything she saw was so confusing. If she could uncover the truth hidden deep in the ocean through this party. As she was leaving, Eve heard a sound behind her. The king smiled and instructed Harry not to mess things up this time, because they had a distinguished guest. But Harry was like a controlled puppet, obeying without emotion. After only the king was left in the room, he suddenly laughed maniacally. Finally free, he pulled open a drawer and took out an object. This was the handbook passed down exclusively to the leaders of the clan. The king looked at each line of writing on it. Be careful of the dragon with a heart. When that dragon appears, you must hide. If you can survive until the dragon dies, peace will return. The king smiled and thought to himself, I didn't expect the prophecy to come true in my generation. He said his mate's name is Eve. There was another note in the book. But if the dragon has a mate, you must be even more careful. He gave a grotesque smile. How foolish, pretending to be noble and intelligent, but unable to find his own mate. Now, all that remains is for him to suffer destruction by his own power and perish. The red dragon coming here was truly unexpected, but it benefits me. Old stories are always buried by new ones. The king went to a room containing a gemstone. After swallowing it, he let out a painful cry. Scales appeared on his face as he laughed grotesquely. Key. This will be the most magnificent party. I will show you all who the true ruler is. Of the sea. At this moment, he looked like a monster in disguise. The second person, Henry, holding a lantern, walked down stone stairs in the dim light. The prince, with thoughtful eyes and a reddened cheek, spoke. Why do you keep causing trouble, Arya? If you had just waited quietly a little longer, things would have been different. Arya cut him off, her voice bitter. How much longer? How much longer must I live like a dead person? It's been 12 years. I have waited, trusting in the promises you made. But has anything changed? We're still treated like insects, still have to live like this. Yes, the prince softly retorted, if I become king. Before he could finish, Arya's words left him speechless. You're still held back by your father, unable to be free, only knowing how to collect magic stones. You think becoming a leader will let you escape that shadow? Don't make me laugh. The prince was heartbroken that she didn't believe him. He had done so much for her. These words only made Arya angrier. Clenching her teeth, she furiously lunged forward, grabbed the prince's collar, and screamed, I don't need this, so leave me alone. We will live on the land where you imprisoned us like real sirens. Is there a problem? So get lost. After a long while, the prince finally spoke. You never listened to me. You listened to everyone else, but why not me? Flashing back to the past, the first time they met was when the prince was young, excitedly sneaking up to the surface. As a merman prince from a young age, he had to learn all sorts of things to understand his people. He knew that one day he would become the master of the sea, so he wanted to accumulate experience early on. But these words were heard by Arya, a little girl huddled in a cave. Seeing it was a girl, the prince immediately covered his face and moved away, while ceaselessly being narcissistic. She has already seen my magnificent appearance. Note, Henry Darrow is the owner of an exceptional appearance. The Darrow clan is famous for their splendid looks. Their beauty has unintentionally charmed people of all races, and Henry was no exception. Therefore, he shyly held out his hand to refuse, asking the girl to stay away, as he didn't want to hurt the feelings of a lady who liked him. But then he heard the girl's blunt words. What the hell are you talking about? You're not my type. These words stunned someone who had been pursued by others since childhood. He rushed forward, demanding she look closely at his face. And this face-off ended with the prince getting a bump on his head. After hearing the reason Henry came here, the two quickly made up and started to become friends. From then on, Henry used studying as an excuse to wander everywhere, helping elderly fishermen catch fish, making necklaces from shells, giving them to children, and spending precious time together. Those were priceless moments for him. But if he could turn back time, he thought to himself, he wouldn't call Arya a friend, wouldn't say let's get along, so that he wouldn't have to fall in love with her. Then one day, this secret was discovered by the butler. When he heard the boy describe his friend, his expression immediately changed. He knelt down and asked worriedly, "Young master, please forgive my impertinence, but what race does she belong to?" Hearing the butler ask this, Henry's eyes darted away as he answered awkwardly, I haven't really thought about that. I just know she lives in a coastal village near the shore." The butler continued to question, "Young master, is there a possibility that she is a siren?" Henry clenched his fists, his voice cracking. "That's impossible now. Red hair is normal on land, right? And if she really were a siren, she would have recognized me from the beginning and tried to deceive me. But that girl didn't recognize me." The butler continued worriedly, "They might have approached you with that intention. Sirens are very deceitful creatures." Before the butler could finish his sentence, Henry couldn't stand it and shouted, "No, that behavior couldn't possibly be to deceive me, right? Today, I will take the butler with me. I plan to go to the unmarked cemetery to pray for them. If the butler comes along, he can read the girl's heart for me, because I can't see through the truth." The butler suddenly grabbed the boy's hand, his voice stern. "Young master, you should not say such thoughtless things. Careless words can cause trouble. As you said, I will go with you today, but I cannot stay long." Henry could only agree. At the unmarked cemetery, Arya stood silently before a grave, her hands clasped, in prayer. "Merciful Lord, please hear my prayer. Grant those who live freely in heaven an eternal life, and give them a warm rest where they can forget the pain of death. Mother, please grant that to my mother. Please give me the courage and kindness to live until the day I see you again, so that I can become the good child you wished for." Just then, Henry's voice called out to her from behind. Arya happily turned around, about to greet him, but was surprised to see a stranger standing behind him. Henry smiled, about to introduce the two to each other, but the butler's terrified expression made him stop. The butler pointed straight at Arya, affirming that she was the red-haired siren. Without another word, he quickly picked Henry up and ran away. No matter how much Henry struggled, the distance between him and Arya grew wider. The butler returned and immediately reported the situation to Henry's father. His father ordered increased surveillance of the siren territory, and Henry was also confined to his room, unable to leave. Henry frantically pounded on the door, trying to get out. He just wanted to talk to Arya for a moment. The butler entered, apologized, and said that he did it all just to protect him. But Henry didn't understand why he had that expression. The door closed, leaving unanswered words behind. Henry closed his eyes and told himself that even if Arya was a siren, she would always be his friend. The prince gradually became more resolute. Then, the end of this story, you and I will end all. A few days ago, Henry and Arya sat next to each other, talking in low voices. Henry had revealed the secret that he couldn't see the truth, which was why his father used every means to prolong his reign. But Arya did not agree with Henry's self-pity. She believed Henry was a good leader. He had the kindness to embrace everyone and the wisdom to see their true nature. "I'm sure you will do well. If you're still worried because you cannot see the truth, why not choose good advisors to support you?" These words of encouragement seemed to give Henry more strength. He excitedly promised, "If I become the leader, the first thing I will do is eliminate all forms of discrimination. I have studied the history of the East and realized that sirens are viewed very poorly. But I don't believe they were inherently evil. There must have been unavoidable circumstances, or perhaps it was just slander from political conflicts. The criteria for choosing a future leader in the East should not be based on race. I will judge for myself." These words made Arya's eyes light up with a glimmer of hope. Henry continued, "But even if I become the leader, it will be very difficult to achieve that alone. So, will you agree to help me?" He extended an invitation. "You, who listen to my story and judge right from wrong, regardless of status, are the person I truly need. Please become my first advisor." But these words would never become reality. Just a few days later, their relationship was nearly shattered. At this moment, Henry had escaped and was anxiously searching for Arya everywhere. The girl, hiding in a corner, heard Henry's worried words. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped out, seeing Arya's battered appearance. Henry asked with concern, as he was about to touch her wound to examine it. Arya couldn't bear it and slapped his hand away, telling him not to come near. She bowed her head and admitted that she was the red-haired siren and assured him she would never appear before him again. "So, please have the army withdraw from the siren's area." But these words were not what Henry wanted to hear. He just wanted to know one thing. "Everything about you, the moments we shared, was it all to deceive me?" Arya replied, "That's right. We have a hard time finding work and are always hungry. The day I met you, I was looking for a job. I thought if I got close to the future leader, I might get something out of it." But Henry didn't believe a single word. He knew Arya well. She wasn't the type to play with others' feelings. He hoped Arya could tell the truth. Arya coldly replied, "Who knows? How can you be sure? when you yourself can't see the truth. These words left Henry frozen, taking a long moment to react. He turned and walked away. Before leaving, he spoke. I will try to persuade my father to retract the decree for stricter surveillance of the sirens. I'm sorry. After returning, Henry locked himself in his room for several days until his butler came. He worriedly advised him to rest, but Henry just retorted grimly, I need to study more, because I am just a defective product that cannot see the truth. These words shocked the butler. He knelt down. Young master, the pain you are feeling will help you become a benevolent leader. You, more than anyone, can understand the pain of not having what others take for granted. Use that understanding to become a king, to find and comfort the hidden sorrows in every corner of the sea. We will see. It is my honor, sir. Will I really be able to do it when I couldn't even win the trust of one person? Henry asked. These words were also something that always appeared in Henry's heart as he grew up, whether he could achieve it or not. Very quickly, the day of the party arrived. Neria and Zion entered the room in formal attire. Zion immediately praised. Wow, you look so beautiful today, sister. Neria's face also reddened when she saw Zion today. She wore a splendid evening gown, looking radiant and captivating. Combined with the doll-like lovely Datro, it made the scene light up, radiating a brilliant aura. Eve smiled, flicked Zion's forehead, and reminded him, you should save that compliment for the one who came with you. These words made Datro, standing to one side, embarrassed, her face flushing red. The little girl hurriedly ran away, despite the clueless Zion chasing after her to hold her back. When the two third wheels left, Noel took the opportunity, his face red as he praised Eve. You are truly very beautiful today. Yes, thank you. Noel, you're also very handsome, Eve replied. Both were shy and didn't dare to face each other. Then, Eve took Noel's arm and said softly, shall we go then? Do you remember what to call me? Yes, my lady. All right, my lord. Whatever I do today, please trust and wait for me. Today, I will finish everything. When they arrived, everyone at the party immediately started talking. Look, it's the leader of the Dragon Clan and his mate. I've only heard rumors about him, but this is the first time I've seen him with my own eyes. He really has found a mate, so he has no intention of staying away anymore. These words made Eve frown slightly in annoyance. She thought to herself, it's so obvious, but even the other merfolk don't doubt my relationship with Noel. Just then, the Merman King spoke up. I've been waiting for the Southern leader and Eve. This is a hastily prepared party, but I hope the two of you will be satisfied. When he appeared, Eve thought to herself, I thought the gazes of the other merfolk were persistent, but they can't compare to this man's gaze, as if he knows something. The king continued, as you all know, the reason we are holding this party today is because the wife of the Southern leader had an incident while visiting the East. Today, I take this opportunity. He glanced, signaling for them to escort Arya up. We want to punish the wicked one. After speaking, he walked over to Arya. This person has continuously expanded her power and disturbed the order of the sea. Considering we are of the same race, I've turned a blind eye to what they have done until now. But now she has gone too far, harming an outsider. To protect the peace in the East, we can no longer turn a blind eye. He raised his hand to cast a spell. A trident appeared instantly. He took it and declared, therefore, I want to execute her myself. These words horrified Eve and Henry. Henry loudly interjected, Father, what do you mean by that? Didn't you say it would end with exile? That was the promise you made to me. The king approached Henry and whispered, Henry, because you are too weak, isn't it time for me to step in? Or do you want to do it yourself? After saying that, he turned to Eve. What about you? How can you forgive the insolence of these sirens? Eve said nothing, just looked at the kneeling Arya, and then replied, I agree. Using brainwashing to hide the truth is a great mistake, because she stepped in front of the king. But as the victim, I want to deliver the punishment myself. He made a request. If possible, leader, please hand it to me. I want to handle it myself. The people around immediately stirred. What did she just say? Did she say she wants to use the Chiana, something only the leader can use? The butler also spoke up. Even if you're the wife of the Southern leader, the request you just made is a bit too much. The only ones qualified to hold the Chiana are those with the blood of the Eastern leader. But before he could finish speaking, the king replied, very well. If you wish, punish the siren yourself. He confidently handed over the Chiana, ignoring the butler's objection. He gave it to her and said, if this can bring peace to the East, then let it be so. Seeing him give it away so easily, she thought to herself, his ability to manipulate the crowd is incredible. He is someone who knows how to control public opinion. He could have refused politely, but instead of doing so, he cheerfully accepted the unreasonable demands. As for me, I will also act according to the image he has created. Then a power radiated from the trident. Should I test it? She swung the trident forcefully towards the king. causing him to take a few steps back. He laughed reluctantly. How could this be happening? She slowly replied, the use of brainwashing. To hide the truth is unforgivable, even if that brainwashing has existed for hundreds of years in the East. She looked at Arya and asked how to deal with this sin. Arya, no, the leader of the East. Hearing her words, the party's atmosphere suddenly became tense. Everyone was bewildered and stunned while the guards immediately intended to move forward to protect the Eastern leader. But before they could act, Nelia had used magic to create a powerful flame, surrounding the three of them, preventing anyone from interfering. He warned the blonde leader, if you dare to touch the hem of her skirt, you should be prepared to bear the consequences. He could only force a smile and ask Eve to lower the trident. But before he could finish his sentence, Eve spoke coldly. I don't want to talk about this with you. Or perhaps I should call you by another name, Siren. Hearing her dare to call their leader a siren, the butler was furious, demanding Nelia reprimand his wife. But he spoke up to defend her without hesitation. Eve is his mate, and according to the law of the dragon race, he will obey her every command. Nelia also emphasized, everyone should be grateful that she ordered him to restrain himself. Otherwise, this place would have long been engulfed in a sea of fire. In the midst of the tense atmosphere, the Eastern leader suddenly whispered softly, how unfortunate, then burst into crazed laughter. He pointed directly at Eve, accusing her of being the biggest liar, for daring to claim she was the mate of the dragon leader. He was confident he could see through the truth, thanks to the eyes of a mermaid and his gift of clairvoyance. But at this moment, Eve smiled, which surprised him. She recalled an ancient legend that told, a god had once warned that merfolk would lose their power if they abused it. And as his representative, the blonde mermaid had punished the arrogant merfolk and was appointed as the leader of the East. For that reason, merfolk always avoid speaking the truth arbitrarily. So how dare you speak the truth now? The entire hall immediately fell silent upon hearing these words. At this moment, a young boy standing next to his mother also recalled the warning that one must not speak the truth arbitrarily, as this was a rule deeply ingrained in their subconscious. While the boy was still wondering why the leader was not being punished, she pointed out his contradiction. I thought merfolk would be punished for speaking the truth, but you currently look completely fine, as if your truth carries no weight. She presented two possibilities. One is that he did not see the real truth. Two is that perhaps the legend itself was a lie from the beginning. This accusation shocked the entire hall. Many people began to whisper, wondering if the leader was truly a siren, and if that legend was fabricated. Why had they never been told? Facing the rising wave of suspicion toward Eve, the butler immediately tried to make excuses, affirming the leader had the ability to read thoughts to distinguish the truth. But Eve presented a witness, Henry himself. Before Henry could show his confusion, she reminded him of the first time he met the leader. At that time, he had mistaken her for Henry's lover, but Arya had immediately seen her nature and revealed her identity without any hesitation. This made Eve wonder how a siren like Arya could know a secret that no one else knew. Then she turned her head to look straight at him, asking the question, so who am I really? But in the blink of an eye, the Eastern leader suddenly acted. He rushed forward to strangle her and took her hostage. He roared, threatening that if anyone came near, he would kill her immediately. He declared that he had worked very hard to protect this place, so he could not let himself die like this. While she struggled for breath, he thought to himself that if he just reapplied the mind control technique, then the true ruler of the East would be him. In a desperate effort, a terrifying power burst from her body. Then the scene shifted to a dark, illusory space. The Eastern leader was holding a net full of holes. He was bewildered when he realized his mind control technique no longer worked. The net, a symbol of his control, was continuously breaking. He began to wonder. It was unclear if it was because he had overused it or because it had been left unused for too long. In a panic, he realized that without this ability, his prey would escape. The absolute control he once held was now shattering, pushing him to the brink of failure. In his panic, the Eastern leader could not believe his eyes when he saw her, using the magic of the king of humans. At the same time, Nelia stood in front of her and apologized for his broken promise. He could no longer stand by and watch someone else threaten her. Immediately, the sky outside the castle turned gloomy. Lightning struck fiercely. Inside, a giant black shadow appeared in the middle of the hall, terrifying everyone. Panic spread quickly as screams of "Run away" echoed throughout the great hall. People pushed each other, trying to escape the descending wrath. Amidst the chaos, A sky-shattering roar of a black dragon resounded, sowing extreme terror. Amidst the chaotic scene caused by the black dragon, Eve was trying to approach him. Seeing the black dragon carefully shielding her, she realized Nelia was still conscious. But if he did not return to his human form, his heart might not be able to withstand this prolonged rage. Therefore, Eve worriedly pleaded for him to return to his human form. But Nelia roared in refusal, saying that they had targeted her life, and he could not bear to lose her again. Those words caused a vague memory to surface in Nelia's mind, making him waver. He felt as if he had lost her before, but could not remember clearly. Facing the giant black dragon, she did not back down but shouted loudly, "Nelia, look at me. I have returned to your side. I know you've been uneasy ever since I left without a word, but I won't do that anymore, because I have realized where I truly want to stay is by your side." Before Eve's strong and sincere affirmation, the black dragon's rage finally subsided. He slowly returned to his human form, embraced her tightly, and whispered an apology for letting his emotions overwhelm his reason. She did not blame him at all. On the contrary, she felt his actions were so sweet that she was willing to entrust her every last breath to him. They were lost in an intimate moment where he expressed his complete surrender, that if he could not devour her, he would place his entire being in her hands. Meanwhile, the remaining people in the hall began to whisper, witnessing the scene of her being able to soothe the black dragon. They believed that she was truly his mate. This raised doubts about the accusation against Eve, and some people realized that the legend about the punishment for speaking the truth might be a lie, created by his own family. Meanwhile, Arya was also struggling with her own memories. All this time, she had always believed that the illusions she saw were the result of a curse. She had repeatedly dreamed of herself being killed by a blonde siren time and time again. As the pieces came together, a horrifying truth flashed in her mind. Arya rushed to attack him, screaming, "So it was you. You not only stole my eyes and killed me, but you also brainwashed everyone." In extreme anguish, Arya cried out in despair. Why did her family have to endure such a tragedy? Is the position of leader that important? Then back in Eve's room, recalling what Arya had said in the Great Hall, she began to suspect that Arya might be the reincarnation of the Eastern leader. From the legend, the arrogant siren who was punished, the truth was finally being revealed through images from the past. From ancient times, the blonde sirens had framed the first Eastern leader to usurp the position, then fabricated the story of the curse to brainwash the entire population. They were the ones who devoured souls. But these speculations were denied by Arya. She realized the truth was being transmitted to her through the Chiana, the scepter symbolizing the leader, which contained the entire history and memories of the East. Arya explained that through the Chiana, she learned the true nature of the lineage of blonde sirens. They cannot see the truth, but they possess the ability to move others deeply on an emotional level, to read the color of souls, and are known for their enchanting beauty. As she said this, an image of a person appeared in Arya's mind, a radiant figure, perfectly matching those characteristics. After a moment of being startled by Eve's call, Arya began to recount the truth, the history that had been buried. She explained that initially, Henry's family, those who won people's hearts, and her siren family, those who read the truth, had cooperated harmoniously. But an ambitious siren framed Arya's ancestor to usurp the leader's position, then slandered them as sole leaders to legitimize his position, and created a false legend. While trying to explain, Arya suffered intense pain from the burden of the memories. Seeing this, Eve quickly comforted her, advising her to rest. At this unexpected concern, Arya looked at her, moved, then held out her hand, asking to see Eve's hand. "You came to the east to confirm whether you were the wolf who stole the dragon's heart in the legend. Isn't that right?" After being exposed by Arya, Eve admitted she came here to find out if she was the source of Nelia's misfortune, and confusedly mentioned another world. With her new power, Arya not only easily recognized Eve as someone from another world, but could also read her innermost thoughts. But then she revealed a horrifying truth, that Eve's soul originally belonged to this world, but was expelled by some force to another world. Eve was completely stunned by this information, unable to understand who and why someone would do such a thing. But Arya could not provide more details, because the limits of her ability did not allow her to read deeper. Therefore, Arya proposed that Eve cooperate to uncover the entire hidden truth together. She posed a question: "Are you ready to accept whatever past you might have?" Without a moment's hesitation, Eve looked straight into Arya's eyes and decisively placed her hand in the outstretched hand of the other. She replied with a single word, but it was filled with determination. Then, after the handshake sealed their pact, Arya began the ritual to explore Eve's past. A mystical space enveloped them, with a giant golden clock face that began to shatter into countless mirror shards, symbolizing the fragmented memories being unveiled. However, instead of a memory from a past life in this world, the fragments reflected a completely strange and unexpected image. A girl with long hair, dressed in a modern style, and holding a phone. This was the image from the other world that Eve had vaguely mentioned. While trying to read Eve's memories, Arya realized a major contradiction. In both of Eve's worlds, there was no existence of dragons. So why did her soul have such a strong connection to it? When Arya tried to dig deeper, she encountered a dark force. The mysterious entity whispered that it was insolent, then immediately attacked Arya, gripping her hand tightly with dark, red energy tendrils, and warning her not to meddle in other people's affairs. The voice also mocked that if everything was discovered too easily, the game would no longer be fun. The spiritual attack was too powerful, causing Arya to be thrown back, panting and trembling. Realizing the ritual was interrupted, Eve couldn't help but show concern, asking what had happened. Arya, still trembling from the attack, explained that she discovered Eve's soul had a connection with a black dragon. However, when she tried to investigate further, an intruder appeared and attacked her. But she could not read the entity's thoughts and did not dare try. Despite failing to find the truth, Arya finally brought some good news. She said that the very fact that Eve's soul was linked to a dragon was strong evidence that she might be the wolf from a legend who stole the dragon's heart. Hearing that she might be the wolf from a legend, Eve could not hide her happiness, although many questions remained unanswered, like why she lived in another world, or why the Eve in the book died in a sea of fire. The possibility that she was Nelia's mate was enough to fill her heart with hope. Seeing Eve's joy, Arya suddenly suggested another method to confirm whether she truly possessed the dragon's heart. With a mischievous smile, she whispered a single word, imprinting. This suggestion made Eve completely freeze, stiffening because she knew what imprinting meant. It was an intimate and powerful ritual where a black dragon gives one of his two hearts to his mate. The mate can then control the dragon's power. This ritual takes place during the mating season, when they carve an imprint on each other to create a path for magic. The vivid illustrations of this process made Eve blush and scream in embarrassment. She couldn't imagine herself and Nelia doing such a thing. Arya also added that the dragon's mating season could last for many days, making Eve even more panicked, right? At that moment, their conversation was interrupted by the call of Rachel. The little girl was running away from Zion. Zion chased after her relentlessly, begging Rachel not to avoid him. While Eve was flustered by the children's argument, Arya's gaze suddenly fell on Rachel. She saw Rachel's soul, the sister of the southern leader, and felt a fleeting evil aura, making Arya wonder if she was seeing things due to fatigue. It's impossible for a child to be like that. The scene changes to a dark prison, where the Eastern leader is being held. He screamed, demanding to be released and questioning the captain of the guard. But in response, he only received the cold gaze of the captain of the guard. He felt tormented for having shed the blood of so many innocent people while serving a wrong master, and expressed his contempt for him. Just then, a soldier came and announced that the southern leader had ordered this prisoner to be brought to him. Hearing this, he immediately panicked and became frightened. But no matter how much he resisted, he was still escorted away. In the prison now, only the captain of the guard and Henry remained. Although he was now just a prisoner, the captain of the guard still expressed his respect for him because Henry, despite being brainwashed, still noticed the change in his father as he became increasingly cruel and made unreasonable decisions, like cutting the knight's salaries from magic stones. But Henry bitterly admitted his powerlessness to stop his father and was ultimately implicated in his crimes. He asked the captain of the guard to be lenient with his butler, as he only acted under the influence of the brainwashing technique. However, the captain of the guard refused, saying it was not within his authority, and suggested that if Henry wanted to plead, he should talk to someone else. Their gazes both turned to Arya, who was standing there silently. All judgment now seemed to be in her hands, the one who was gradually regaining her true status and power. She sat down opposite him, who was still in shock after what had happened. Arya looked straight at Henry and said, "I came to talk to you. There are many things we need to discuss." Looking at Arya's back, the captain of the guard recalled the moment the brainwashing was broken, and the scepter Chiana, appeared in her hand as irrefutable proof. However, he also realized a complicated problem. Although Arya was the rightful leader, she had also broken the Order of the Sea. As the leader of the red-haired Sirens, this created a difficult situation regarding how to treat her. When asked for her opinion, Arya gave him full authority to decide and was ready to face any judgment. Then Arya asked the captain of the guard to let her and Henry talk in private, despite his concern that Henry might escape. But after being reassured by Arya that she understood Henry's nature, he finally agreed and stepped away. When only the two of them were left, Henry sincerely apologized to Arya for making her live a life full of suffering. He was ready to accept death to pay for his sins. But Arya replied with a cold and meaningful sentence. Just death. That's not enough. Arya declared the punishment for Henry was not death, but to drift. She ordered him to wander everywhere, not to settle down, not to cling to anything, to feel the pain of separation for a lifetime. However, this was not a simple exile. Arya requested that Henry, after he had wandered, must contact her to report on his situation. She also gave him a mission to find and report back on any injustice, such as discrimination based on race. This punishment would leave him with no place in the sea. But Henry realized that this was not a punishment, but more like a trip around the world. But Arya cut off his thoughts. She said not to misunderstand. She was just giving a troublesome task to someone capable. Arya explained that because the coastal regions of the territory of Merfolk, Henry's mission would help him atone for his sins against them. Hearing this, Henry suddenly remembered a promise from the past. When he was a boy, he had once asserted that when he became leader, he would eliminate all discrimination in this world. In his heart, Henry also hoped Arya remembered that promise, but tried to tell himself not to hope. He believed it was impossible. But deep down, Arya whispered that she had never forgotten, because she was still trapped in that very day. The image of a lonely little girl, standing on a barren, desolate land appeared. Henry's promise, though denied by herself, was the only ray of light in that dark memory. In Arya's memory, she and another red-haired boy were trying to sell small trinkets on the street. An angry shop owner rushed out, pushed Arya down, and cursed her as a bad luck redhead. The memory continued to reveal their miserable life, branded as the family of the red-haired siren who tried to assassinate the Eastern leader. They were shunned by everyone, and no one showed them mercy. They had to live day by selling small items. On bad days, they didn't even earn enough to live. Arya, who was living with her aunt at the time, felt like a burden and was utterly desperate. She clutched the beads in her hand and silently vowed that she could not live like this anymore. She would try going to the surface, believing that someone that would accept her. Although the boy was worried about the strictness of the guards, Arya remained determined. She revealed that she had to use some method to organize a funeral for her mother in a place where her family was not even allowed to be buried in the village cemetery. With a mysterious smile, she told the boy not to tell their aunt. Arya knew a secret path to the surface, a place that smugglers often used to transport contraband. A few days later, Arya stood alone before a cave leading to the sea. Reaching the surface, Arya realized her decision was the right one. Here, few people knew about the prejudice against red hair, and although many people bought her goods out of pity, she didn't mind. To her, it was still better than being bullied. After selling everything and having time to say goodbye to her buried mother, Arya stood by the sea, planning her next steps, doing chores for her aunt, preparing things for tomorrow's market, and finding more materials like seashells. She told herself she had to work harder, so as not to become a burden. As sunset approached, she felt a little tired and decided to rest for a bit. Before heading back, she strolled along the beach, enjoying a rare moment of peace. It was at this moment that a fateful encounter was about to happen, an event that would completely change her life once again. Arya stood by the sea, captivated by the beauty of the surface. The vast sky, the salty sea breeze, and the sound of the waves like a song. All were things she could not see at the bottom of the dark ocean. This reminded her of the first time she met that radiant, blonde boy she immediately recognized. He was the leader's only son. She felt a curiosity and a longing. Intensely, though she didn't understand what kind of experience it was. She only knew one thing for sure. She wanted to get closer to that boy, closer to the light and freedom he represented. Time waits for no one, and when the sun sets, it's time to wake up from the dream. For the red-haired girl, Arya, sunset marked the end of the beautiful memories of the radiant blonde boy and the beginning of a harsh reality. At that time, at her aunt's house, after a hard day's work, she returned and her aunt served her a simple meal. During the meal, the aunt suddenly mentioned that she knew Arya was secretly working odd jobs outside, despite trying to hide it. Arya could not deceive her aunt, because lies never worked. In their family, they understood the psychological burden Arya carried. Ever since Arya's mother passed away, the aunt had not stopped her niece from working. She hoped it could help Arya ease her guilt and feel like a part of the family. However, she also couldn't hide her worry. She sternly warned Arya about the dangers of leaving the village, especially on the surface, a place full of unforeseeable threats. Seemingly understanding this warning, Arya was about to recount something she had experienced. But her aunt's next words startled Arya. It turned out the person she was referring to was the blonde boy she often met. Arya hurriedly clarified that she wouldn't cause any trouble because that boy didn't know her true identity and just thought she was someone from the surface. To convince her aunt, Arya presented an economic reason, talking about the rising cost of living. She proudly showed off a bucket full of money, gold earned in the past few days, proving that meeting. The boy did not affect her business at all. However, all of Arya's efforts were extinguished by a firm no from her cold aunt. She pointed out that the fact that Arya could meet the boy until now was purely due to luck. The aunt ended the conversation with a weighty question, planting confusion in Arya's heart. Can you keep your secret forever? She took her niece's hand, gently but firmly. She advised her to end this relationship immediately. According to her, it was for the safety of both, and also to preserve the beautiful memories before things went too far. Though full of pain and tears, Arya had to accept but earnestly begged for one last chance to say goodbye. After a moment of hesitation, the aunt reluctantly agreed. The scene suddenly shifts to the Siren Village Town Hall. Here, in a formal meeting, a shocking announcement is made. It is a complete lockdown, not only cutting off trade with the outside. Now all sirens are forbidden from leaving the village, enraging the people, as they considered it a death sentence for them. The village chief appeared helpless. Affirming this was an order from the leader that could not be refused. The situation became tense when a desperate woman pleaded because her son was seriously injured and needed to return to the village urgently for treatment. Otherwise, he would risk being crippled. This ban meant that her son would be abandoned. Despite her pleas, the village chief stood by his decision. No one was allowed to enter the village. Then the deep reason behind the cruel lockdown was revealed. The village chief said that a red-haired girl, that is Arya, had escaped and made contact with the leader's only son, causing him to issue this order. This information immediately triggered a brutal act of retaliation. Early the next morning, a violent knock on the door shattered the silence at Arya's aunt's house. A group of men burst into the house. Rudely awakened by the noise, the boy Zackley walked out of his room and was horrified, witnessing his mother being treated roughly, and could only cry out helplessly in despair. Finally, one of the soldiers announced that they had found the girl, but the truth was that they had captured the wrong person. Back on Arya's side, she was completely unaware of the tragedy unfolding at home because she was tossing and turning, unable to sleep. She had gone for a walk by the seashore and collected beautiful shells, intending to make a souvenir gift. Her mind at this moment was filled with thoughts of the blonde-haired boy, Henry. She felt tormented for deceiving him, believing he must hate her very much. Arya's greatest longing at this moment was to see Henry, once more to apologize, without knowing that this very relationship had put her family in danger. Arya returned home and was faced with a horrifying scene. From a distance, she saw a strange man holding her cousin, Zackley, tightly right in front of the door. That strange man seemed surprised by Arya's appearance. It seemed he was only ordered to find a red-haired siren and did not expect there to be another. All thoughts of Henry immediately vanished, replaced by extreme fear. As Arya realized the tragedy that had befallen her family, her entire attention was now focused on the image of little Zackley being restrained, and she understood that her cousin was suffering the consequences caused by her own actions. As the harsh reality hit, Arya's mind flashed with images of the leaders, lockdown, and the tragedy that had happened to her family. Being taunted by the guard, a mysterious power suddenly erupted from Arya. A blinding flash of light made the guard clutch his eyes and scream in pain and let go of Zackley. Seizing the opportunity, Arya rushed forward to catch her cousin, shielding the boy. The guard, both astonished and angry, yelled, asking who she was. No longer fearful as before, Arya faced him, her eyes full of defiance. Am I not standing right in front of you? I'm the red-haired girl who met the patriarch's son. Faced with the guard's skepticism, Arya did not flinch. She revealed that it was the villagers' bullying that had pushed her to the surface, where she happened to meet the patriarch's son. Arya bluntly questioned the guard, exposing that he and the others had also secretly broken the rules. She threatened to expose all these secrets to the patriarch if he dared to harm her family. Hidden nerve, the guard became furious. He He lunged to hit Arya and insulted her for her arrogant attitude, claiming that was why her family was exiled. Even when hit, Arya did not submit. She challenged him to strike if he dared, mocking his cowardice. While Arya was still trying to resist, Zackley suddenly bowed his head, begging the guard for forgiveness. This action stunned Arya, but Zackley quickly explained that his mother was still being held inside, and they had to submit to save her life. Zackley's words pushed Arya into a deep pit of despair and self-questioning. She painfully wondered if wanting a friend was such a great sin, and why she had to suffer this punishment just for her red hair. She bitterly compared her fate with Henry's, who was born into luxury and blessed by everyone. Then the two met again at the place where they first met. She asked Henry how he could be so sure of everything without knowing the truth, when it was he who brought her suffering. Henry, despite Arya's bitter words, still promised to try to convince his father to lift the surveillance order. As he turned to leave, Arya was consumed with regret. She didn't understand why. Henry didn't resent her at all, even though she was just a despised, red-haired siren. The torment peaked when Arya realized she was just taking her anger out on him, just like how others had treated her. She never wanted to say those words. What she really wanted was to apologize for deceiving him. The most painful truth was that deep down, Arya always knew Henry was a good person who did not discriminate. Now she was left with only pain and regret for taking advantage of the very kindness she had always admired in him. In the following days, Arya tried to convince herself to hate Henry, telling herself that her cruelty was a necessary shield to survive in a harsh world. Just then, a voice calling her name pulled Arya from her memories. Henry now appeared behind bars, facing a more mature and composed Arya. Henry extended his hand and asked for the honor of being the first to welcome her. The new patriarch, Arya, now in her role as the new patriarch, also accepted the congratulations from Henry. After a brief farewell, Arya left with a heart heavy with regret. She realized that if she had been more honest about her situation back then, perhaps their relationship would not have come to such a tragic end, as it had now, ending the unfinished love story of the young couple. The story quickly moves to another room. The old leader, in a state of fatigue and exhaustion, was being interrogated in a prison cell. With uncontrollable rage, Nelia demanded he confess everything he knew, or else face a brutal punishment. How could he dare not listen? He bowed his head and revealed an ancient prophecy of his clan. The prophecy warned to be wary of the dragon, who has one heart with its mate, because their mate will bring destruction. So when he learned of this prophecy, he was terrified and ordered the eastern region to be locked down to hide. Nelia was silent for a moment, then asked if that mate was his wife, Lily, the only one who knew his true identity, and had broken the brainwashing in the East, or not. He laughed mockingly, confirming it. However, his real mate's name was Lily. Seeing him silent, in his heart, he mocked Nelia for his naivety. His body was decaying, but he still trusted the person beside him to be his true mate. Wanting revenge, he decided to let Nelia die in the arms of a fake, a non-existent mate, so that his final moments will be drowned in sweet deception. Switching over to Eve, she was flustered at being given a huge treasure by Arya as a thank you gift, because thanks to Eve, she had been able to close a precious memory. She bowed her head in thanks once more as Arya, a member of the East. This time, Eve did not refuse either. She then asked Arya about her future plans. This time, she had truly escaped her past. Smiling, she declared she would atone for her past actions, although she once believed her actions were justified. Self-defense against discrimination. But thanks to one person, the image of whom was Henry, she had learned a lesson in tolerance and sincerity. Arya was ready for a new chapter. Before the couple, Eve and Nelia left, Eve gave Arya one last blessing. She believed that although she couldn't foresee the future, Eve would surely have a happy life, because she would always be surrounded by people who loved and cherished her, and to live honestly with each other so as not to miss the happiness right in front of them. Arya's words seemed to have a deeper meaning, making Eve realize that perhaps it was time for her to reveal her true identity. She had felt a connection. After the dragon and his mate left, everyone in the territory was talking. It was time to hold a trial for the guilty. These words were all heard by the hooded man. He now did not know what to do. The story then flashes back 13 years. This man was Leotat Kok. His Kok clan had a long tradition of serving as close aides to the Eastern leader, and the name Leotat meant loyalty. Although he was a younger son and marginalized, Leotat was recognized for his talent by the Eastern leader at the time and was recruited as a butler. Leotat was extremely grateful and vowed to dedicate his utmost loyalty However, the leader quickly revealed his true colors. Based on an old proverb, he claimed that the name Leotat was too grand for his status. Under the pretext of protecting him from the burden of the name, he stripped Leotat of his identity. From then on, calling him only by his title, Butler. After that, Leotat was ignored for 2 whole weeks, not given any tasks, and was implicitly looked down upon by the other butlers. Despite being grateful to remain at the mansion, he still clearly felt the isolation and humiliation, trapped in a role that was a name only. But an unexpected event broke Leotat's silence. The leader's son, Henry, personally came to find him. In complete contrast to the arrogance and cruelty of his father, Henry appeared extremely friendly and approachable. The boy not only invited Leotat to sit and talk as an equal, but also explained that the reason he had to come in person was because many in the mansion still did not know of Leotat. Then Henry suddenly apologized. The boy sincerely took the blame for not being aware of the situation of his subordinates, considering it a shortcoming of a future leader. Leotat was extremely confused by the boy's apology. Henry then explained that the fact that Leotat was summoned and then ignored was entirely due to his father's whim and forgetfulness. However, in that coincidence, Henry had the opportunity to discover Leotat. The boy expressed deep admiration for the progressive ideas and the heart that always looked out for the despised of Leotat. Realizing he needed a sincere person to give him honest advice, Henry earnestly invited Leotat to become his guiding light. Deeply moved by this trust, Leotat agreed. Their master-servant and teacher-student relationship was immediately established. When Henry rushed to improve Leotat's status, it was Leotat who gently taught him his first lesson on the etiquette of a leader, and Henry happily accepted it. However, it was all a lie. The true leader, the one with the ability to change everything, was Arya, the red-haired siren. He could not accept this. In his heart, Henry was the greatest leader. Therefore, the butler decided to take revenge on the one who caused all of this. He used his own core, the source of his power and life, to expose everything. He wanted his enemy to taste the pain, similar to the pain of one's whole world collapsing. After the group returned, the pink-haired maid immediately burst into tears, hugging Eve tightly, scolding her for going somewhere without a word. Eve could only smile placatingly, apologizing for making everyone worry. The surrounding servants also sniffled emotionally. The 2 onlookers also spoke up. One was glad she had returned safely. The other also hoped she wouldn't leave again. While everyone was reuniting, Rachel frowned and muttered why that group of people didn't notice their presence at all, while Nelia just watched quietly. Rachel also muttered that Eve was accepting everyone's affection because they were so dear and attached. This sentence made Nelia feel amused. He smiled gently and said to the little girl, "That's why we like her." As he spoke, he affectionately patted Rachel's head. Hearing this, the little girl also smiled and nodded in agreement with her brother. Right after that, Zion suddenly appeared right next to her. He looked at the little girl with big round eyes and a goofy grin, teasing, "You're very affectionate too, huh?" This sudden appearance and abrupt comment startled and flustered Rachel. In a scene filled with pink hearts, she stammered in rebuttal, "Well, what is it? Why say that all of a sudden? I already know that." Zion seemed amused by her reaction, cheerfully asking back, "What about you? You said you like affectionate people. Does that mean you like me too?" Zion's question made Rachel blush bright red, then hurriedly ran away. Witnessing the scene, Nelia couldn't help but laugh. Before chasing after her, Zion even cheerfully turned back to look at him and promised that he would take good care of Rachel. After the 2 noisiest ones left, his gaze turned towards Eve, who was still surrounded by her family and servants in joy and emotion. It seemed Zion's words had affected him, making him realize that he himself also had someone to take care of. Continuing that train of thought, Nelia decisively stepped forward. Without a word of warning, he approached and hugged Eve tightly from behind, gently calling "my lady." Surprised by the sudden hug from behind, Eve expressed surprise, saying that his action tickled her. Nelia did not let go. Instead, he gently expressed his concern, noticing that she seemed tired and his fever was also rising. Still holding her in his arms, he suggested they should go inside to rest immediately. Eve's heart pounded at the closeness and his gentle words of concern. She wondered if this embarrassment was because she had overheard Arya talking about the mark. This also made her suddenly realize that she also needed to explain about her own mark to Nelia. Thinking about it, looking at Nelia's innocent face, she wondered again how she could explain such a thing to a man she considered too innocent, especially when looking into his clear eyes. Thinking this, Eve turned away in extreme embarrassment, while Nelia tagged along behind, demanding to cool down right now. Hearing the conversation between the 2 made the servants feel extremely awkward. Then they also regained their composure, because now they had a very important task to do. That momentous task was revealed through the scene of a magnificent hall filled with flowers. It was to prepare for their master's wedding. As night fell, the scene shifts inside a room dimly lit by candlelight. Here, Eve was extremely restless, unable to sit still. She silently realized that the situation was becoming really serious, because she still hadn't found a way to explain the mark, and had to postpone it until now. Just now, he mentioned bathing, which made the atmosphere even more strange and awkward. Just as she was awkwardly wondering what to do, Nelia suddenly called her name, making Eve jump and turn her head in embarrassment. Amidst the romantic, flower-filled scene, Nelia gently asked if they could cool down a bit. This suggestive proposal, along with his gentle gaze, made Eve realize that the moment she had always feared and tried to postpone had arrived. Internally, she knew she could no longer avoid it and had to face this issue. After a moment's hesitation, Eve held out her hand, inviting him to take it. As soon as Nelia took her hand, Eve's face showed clear embarrassment. Then Eve's mind suddenly took a different turn. She felt he was more like a cute, an adorable puppy than a dragon. When he began to gently rub her hand, Eve, completely flustered, asked what he was doing. Instead of being concerned about lowering his fever, Nelia just smiled and replied gently that it was simply because her hand was so small and lovely that it made him unable to stop. This unexpected compliment, along with the ticklish sensation of his caress, made Eve extremely shy. But inside, Eve's heart was in turmoil. She thought to herself that just a simple handhold was enough to make her want to tell the man she liked about the mark. However, she quickly dismissed her personal feelings, telling herself it was what she needed to do, because it was the only way to stop Nelia from losing control. To reassure herself, she convinced herself that this action was not at all for selfish reasons, but a necessity. Having made up her mind, Eve gathered her courage and began to speak to Nelia. However, before she could finish her sentence, a sudden sharp pain struck, causing her to cry out. Her unusual action immediately made Nelia worry. He quickly apologized and asked if she was okay, though still a bit shocked and in pain. Eve quickly reassured him that she was fine. Seeing Eve's wound, Nelia blamed himself for not having noticed the wound until then. Perhaps he had injured her while hugging her, because his dragon scales were very sharp. Nelia again apologized guiltily to Eve. She quickly reassured him that everything was fine and the wound was not bleeding. Then Nelia suddenly made a bold move. He took Eve's hand and gently placed it to his lips like a kiss. This intimate and unexpected action left Eve completely stunned. She could only gape in astonishment, calling his name in confusion. However, Nelia calmly explained that a dragon's blood has healing properties, so it would help her wound recover quickly. Immediately after, he lightly licked her injured hand to heal it, an act both practical and intimate that left Eve completely unsure how to react. After Nelia's action, Eve was astonished to find her wound had completely disappeared. The miraculous healing ability, along with Nelia's unexpected intimacy, made Eve's heart pound at her chest. She could only place a hand over her heart. Her face flushed in extreme confusion at the situation that had just occurred. After somewhat composing herself, Eve noticed Nelia's face was flushed. She gently placed her hand on his cheek and asked worriedly if he was feeling hot, but Nelia admitted he was indeed very hot. Although Eve had touched his hand, the hot sensation had not subsided at all. Finally, he came to the conclusion that this condition seemed impossible to solve with just a simple touch of the hand, implying they needed a more intimate solution. And Eve also understood this hidden meaning. She looked straight at him with a shy, alluring expression, frankly suggesting he come closer to her. This bold invitation from her immediately had a strong effect on Nelia. An intense desire appeared in his eyes. Responding to Eve's bold invitation, Nelia agreed immediately without a moment's hesitation. Right after, he pulled her into a tight embrace, letting her sit snugly in his lap. In this extremely intimate position, the two looked deeply into each other's eyes, the distance between them almost non-existent. The atmosphere immediately became incredibly romantic and passionate. In Nelia's arms, Eve gently asked him how he felt. Nelia replied that it wasn't enough. He wanted more. His face lit up with a meaningful and desirous smile, while his crimson eyes shone with intense desire. Responding to Nelia's desire, Eve seemed to have made up her mind. After a moment of gathering her courage, she proactively raised her hand to his cheek, pulling their faces closer together. When the two were at their closest, the important explanation about the mark was finally revealed. It was a ritual performed by biting the dragon's neck. The purpose was to create a flow of magic and share that immense power. However, the prerequisite for creating the mark was that they had to break the control barrier. Eve realized another urgent problem. She thought to herself that Nelia's body temperature was currently too high. If they broke the control barrier right now, his magic would explode uncontrollably. So she realized they needed to cool down first. And to do that, Eve proactively gave Nelia a deep and passionate kiss. They were completely lost in each other, from the initial touches of their lips to a deep, intense kiss and a tight embrace. The long kiss showed a complete fusion of both physical and emotional connection in a romantic and magical space. Amidst the passionate kiss, Nelia's hand began to slide down her back, a more intimate action that startled Eve. Her eyes widened in surprise at the unexpected touch. A protesting sound came from Eve, causing him to slowly regain his senses. As soon as their lips parted, Nelia suddenly buried his head in Eve's shoulder. This incomprehensible action left Eve completely stunned and confused. She could only let out a gasp, then worriedly called Nelia's name. But Nelia kept his head on her shoulder, whispering an apology, admitting that he had once again acted impulsively. He explained that he stopped because he was afraid. In his current state, with his unstable power, he might hurt her. After hearing Nelia's explanation, Eve gently reassured him. She asked if he really didn't know, that she would never kiss someone she didn't like. This indirect confession stunned Nelia. He was astonished as he realized the meaning behind her words. Seeing this, Eve took a deep breath, seemingly having gathered all her courage for the next act. Realizing she had expressed her feelings clearly, since she had already let it slip, she decided to go all the way. Eve decided to ask Nelia if he wanted to create the mark with her. Her question seemed to make time stand still. Nelia's eyes showed extreme surprise, but also a surge of intense emotion. He asked doubtfully if she was truly serious. In response, Eve smiled gently and sincerely. She affirmed that she was completely serious and truly wanted to do it with him, Nelia. Despite Eve's affirmation, Nelia was still hesitant. He expressed his concern that she would be in danger because a small human could not withstand the power of a dragon. Eve calmly suggested that they should then just practice slowly. She even playfully reassured him that if she got hurt in the process, he could heal her, just as he had done before. Completely convinced by her trusting and clever reassurance, all his hesitations seemed to vanish, and he simply agreed with a decisive all right. Acting immediately after receiving her consent, Nelia decisively pushed Eve down, so she was lying on her back in an incredibly intimate position. As her long hair fanned out around her, he looked at her and whispered in praise that Eve was truly very clever. The king looked down at Eve and repeated her earlier suggestion. He whispered that to practice as she had said, he needed her help. This request, along with his captivating and passionate gaze, turned Eve's own solution into a suggestive invitation. Responding to the king's request for help, Eve gently accepted. She affectionately whispered his name and said that she agreed. Receiving permission, Nelia immediately bent down, pressing his face into the crook of her neck. In response, she wrapped her arms around him, completely entrusting herself to him, marking the beginning of the important ritual, a moment of absolute trust and intimacy. Even after beginning the prelude to the ritual, Nelia was still not completely stable. His face was flushed and beaded with sweat, thinking to himself that this was still not enough. So he kissed her more deeply, craving an even deeper connection. In his intense desire, Nelia's deepest inner thoughts were revealed. He thought to himself that this heart exists only once, even if it were to melt away. But despite everything, he still yearned to become one with her. After pulling away, Nelia began to bite her neck. The sudden and intense sensation made Eve let out a soft cry. In that moment, Nelia's heart was filled with a deep sense of peace, a serenity that he realized could only be found in his one and only mate. However, another stream of thought arose in him, the worry of whether Eve could satisfy all his desires. Yet it seemed there was something more important than all those worries. A more intense emotion was rising within him. We won't know unless we try. Immediately after, he began to take off his shirt, revealing his muscular physique. His desire was surging intensely. Even so, he didn't forget to ask her if she was still okay. Then after this, Nelia was about to continue perhaps we can move on to the next step, but he suddenly stopped. He was completely stunned to see her, with wolf ears that had just appeared, fast asleep in the middle of their most passionate moment. Looking at the sleeping Eve, Nelia's initial astonishment gradually turned to helplessness. He thought to himself that perhaps she was truly exhausted from all her recent work, to the point that her wolf ears had appeared. Even so, he couldn't help but feel disappointed, wondering why she had to fall asleep right at this moment. But as he looked down at the sleeping Eve, Nelia could only let out a resigned sigh, thinking to himself that this situation wasn't actually so bad. The reason was that he knew Eve also found peace with him, just as he found peace with her. With that thought, he affectionately called her his mate. Finally, full of gentle love, he bent down and placed a light kiss on the forehead of his sleeping mate. After the gentle kiss on her forehead, Nelia also laid down gently beside Eve. Inwardly, he was still a little curious about what would happen next after the kiss, but he decided to be patient and let things unfold slowly. Then he pulled her into a tight, gentle, and protective embrace. In that peaceful moment, he silently promised her that from this moment on, he would be the one to teach her everything. The next morning, the bright morning sunlight shone in, waking her up. She slowly opened her eyes, drowsily wondering why it was so bright, then realized she had fallen asleep without knowing when. When she was fully awake, the first sight that met her eyes was Nelia, lying beside her with his shirt open, revealing his muscular chest and six-pack abs. This made her let out a scream from the shock, while Nelia, with a calm and slightly teasing expression, simply asked if she was awake. Eve's mind was now in complete turmoil. She wondered why his clothes were in such a state and began to panic, wondering if the events of last night were just a dream. In response to Eve's panic, Nelia gently stroked her hair and told her to go back to sleep because it wasn't time to eat yet. Although she obediently listened, Eve's mind was in utter chaos. She wondered why every time she woke up next to Nelia, it was in such a confusing situation, though she didn't hate the feeling. She also found it contradictory that Nelia had once said he wasn't good at anything, yet he was incredibly skilled in intimate gestures. As she was trying to remember where things had left off last night, she felt something wagging. The wagging sensation on top of her head stunned her. As soon as she discovered her ears had appeared, she panicked and hurriedly pushed Nelia away. Eve was taken aback by her sudden action. Nelia could only call out Eve's name in confusion, not understanding what was happening. Meanwhile, Eve, with a frightened face, trembled and clutched her head, desperately asking Nelia not to look at her. Her mind was now filled with vital questions. Why did these ears appear? When did Nelia see them? While Eve was deep in her panic, worrying that Nelia would think she was a professional deceiver even though she had planned to confess, a deep, warm voice cut in. Hearing him call her name, Eve flinched, bracing herself for questioning. And then, instead of the accusation she was dreading, he looked at her with a gentle smile and made a most unexpected request. He wanted her to pat his head. Eve's central processing unit seemed to have malfunctioned upon receiving such a normal request. At this moment, she stammered, still unable to believe her ears, asking if he really wanted his head patted. Nelia calmly confirmed his request, as if it were a completely normal thing to do on any beautiful morning. Faced with Eve's confused expression, Nelia decided to use his final move to reassure her. He gently moved closer, placing his hand on her cheek, and said that dragons always obey their mates unconditionally. And to be sure, he emphasized that this was true regardless of who their mate was, even if that person was a wolf. But she was still uneasy, anxiously asking if it was really okay for her to be of the species, and what if she was the evil wolf who had stolen his heart. In response to this insecurity, Nelia was silent for a moment before bluntly dismissing it. He said that was a matter of the past, and besides, she herself had promised to stay by his side. To illustrate his words, he pulled her into a tight embrace to show that whether she was a dragon, a wolf, or any other creature, he had no intention of letting her go anywhere. It seems Nelia's "I'll accept you no matter what" reassuring hug wasn't potent enough. She still couldn't understand why he was so good to her. He simply replied, "Because I love you." He smiled with contentment, holding his mate tightly in his arms. He didn't care about any legends. Right now, the only thing he wanted was her. And then, as if to make sure she understood clearly, he gently pleaded, "Please allow me to be by your side." She didn't answer, but only burrowed deeper into his embrace, letting her heart beat erratically. She worried that if Nelia continued to trust trust her so unconditionally, he would be easily deceived by others. That's why she whispered. And then, without another word of explanation, she gave him a gentle kiss. It seems that according to Eve's logic, the best way to protect someone from being deceived is to kiss them, an incredibly effective and romantic anti-fraud method. With a radiant smile, she declared that she had to become Nelear's mate to protect him. It seemed that only now did she realize that Nelear had always loved her. And so, filled with newfound courage, she declared that she also wanted to be brave for once. She wanted to leave her mark on Nelear. She desperately wanted to dream an eternal dream with him. To be sure, one last time, she asked if he could give her the binding key. After a moment of silence, seemingly to let his emotions settle, he admitted that her wanting to leave a mark on him made him so happy he couldn't put into words. But it was very difficult to do that now. Hearing Nelear say that, Eve felt a little disappointed, but she guessed it was probably because he was still too hot and suggested they could do it next time. However, Nelear immediately denied that was the reason, leaving Eve completely stunned. The reason they couldn't perform the ritual right now was because the binding key was in the human world. This information left Eve completely bewildered. Why was the key there? Nelear began to go into historical detail, recalling a truth she probably already knew, that their world and the human world had been separated because of a war in the past. The first Dragon Clan leader, blaming himself for causing the war, decided to take a drastic measure to prevent the tragedy from recurring. After imprisoning himself, he entrusted the key to the king of the human world. After hearing the explanation, Eve immediately suggested they go get the key quickly. And of course, humans wouldn't return the key so easily. But if she could go with him and help him regulate his body temperature. Contrary to Eve's expectations, Nelear dismissed her intention to go to the human world. He gripped her hand tightly, his face showing a pained expression, and began to reveal an important truth that could change everything. That the human king was actually